Welcome to Chinese Novel Audiobook Chapter 81, The Final Battle. Chapter 81 The Final Battle. After looking at each other for a moment, Qing Ming withdrew his gaze, forcibly suppressed his restlessness, and began to quietly wait for the end of the first round of battle. A few minutes later, the 14th round of the first round ended. The 14 winners were randomly assigned again and started the second round of battle. I don't know if it's luck or Sarutobi Hinazawa intends to save the most exciting battle for the end. In short, in this second round of battle, Qing Ming and Uchiha Shimizu still did not meet. And they easily solved their opponent without any surprises. At this point, anyone with a little bit of vision can see that Qing Ming and Uchiha Shimizu are much stronger than others. The last first name will only be produced between the two of them. Fortunately, Zhongren's promotion depends on the comprehensive performance of the 3 exams, not just the ranking of this competition. Otherwise, other candidates may be competing negatively now. Time passes by minute. 1.5 hours later. The third and second round of the competition ended. The winning 7 will be grouped again, but because it is odd, one person will be bye. Qing Ming had no hope for his luck, but never thought that he would have a bye this time. However, after learning the news, he was only stunned for a moment and then returned to normal. The reason why he acted so calm was naturally because he had enough confidence in his own strength. Qing Ming believes that whether he is a bye or not this time, it will not affect his promotion. Therefore, I don't care much about such a result. However, the other people looked at Qing Ming with a hint of envy. Unfortunately, no matter what they think, the exam must continue. The battle has arrived in the third round, and the candidates who stayed behind are all pretty good, so the duration of each battle is a little longer. It took nearly an hour in total, and all 3 battles ended. There is still no time to rest, and the 4th round of the competition begins drawing lots. Without any surprises, he and Uchiha Shimizu still did not meet, but met one candidate respectively. His opponent is a 13-year-old boy named Amano Hai. He has excellent melee ability and can use grenade escape ninjutsu. His overall combat power is not weak. But it's just not weak. It's okay to face other people, but it's not enough to face Qing Ming. Moreover, as early as the audience seat, Qing Ming could see the other party's abilities clearly. Now, when we fight, it's like an open paper exam, it's not too easy. His outstanding melee ability is not worth mentioning under his LV4's Koi Flow Sword technique. As for Thunder Escape, I don't even have the chance to display it. Finally, Qing Ming took advantage of his upset and deliberately revealed a flaw to lure Amano C to counterattack. The other party was indeed deceived, and Qing Ming immediately seized the opportunity and ended the battle with a illusion Sharingan. When Amano Hai came to his senses, the examiner had already stood in front of him, blocked the flying Kula for him, and announced that Qing Ming had won. After ending this battle that barely counts as warm-up, Qing Ming returned to the corridor on the 2nd floor, leaned against the railing, and quietly waited for the final battle. It was not allowed to wait for him, and just a few minutes later, Uchiha Shimizu ended the battle with another candidate. At this time, the examiner's voice came. In the last game, Uchiha Aomizu vs Uchiha Shimizu. Hearing this, in the corridor on the 2nd floor, all the eliminated candidates showed excitement. Now everyone knows that Uchiha Aomiya and Uchiha Shimizu are the strongest people in this Chunin exam. So who will win and lose when they meet? Candidates want to know the answer, and those young ninjas also want to know. Therefore, not only the candidates were very excited, but the ninja also showed an interest. As for Uchihajima, he was so excited that he was happy. The top spot in the Chunin exam must be decided among 2 Uchiha ninjas. Doesn't this just show that Uchiha is powerful? Affected by the surrounding atmosphere, Qing Ming simply stopped walking on the stairs. He put his right hand on the railing and turned over. After landing, he bent his knees, took off the impact of falling from the high altitude, and stood steadily in front of Uchiha Shimizu. The examiner looked at the 2 of them around and asked, "Are you ready?" Qing Ming did not answer immediately after hearing this, but looked at Uchiha Shimizu and asked lightly, "Do you want a rest?" Hearing this, Uchiha Shimizu was a little surprised, as if she was surprised that Qing Ming would say such words. According to his observation of Qing Ming these days, the other party should not be a person who likes nonsense. This is not Qing Ming's arrogant attitude, but letting the other party rest, but this battle is not a life and death battle after all, and there is no need to take advantage of others' danger. That's why he asked this question. Otherwise, if he had a life and death battle, he would have wanted to take action immediately. Rest. That's dreaming. However, Uchiha Shisui did not follow Qing Ming's words and shook his head straight and said, "No." Hearing the conversation between the 2, the examiner did not waste time. He immediately waved his right hand down, and while retreating suddenly, he shouted, "Start." The next moment, a ding sound came. It turned out that just as the examiner finished speaking, Qing Ming and Uchiha Shisui drew out the short sword at the same time, and then rushed forward together, and the short swords fought fiercely. Qing Ming held the hilt of the sword in both hands and kept exerting force. Uchiha Shimizu also held the sword in both hands, trying his best to resist. But Qing Ming was 2 years older after all, and with the improvement of his physical constitution, several times, his strength was slightly stronger than Uchiha Shisui. So, after a moment of stalemate, Uchiha Shimizu chose to give in. And this retreat lost the opportunity. Qing Ming seized the opportunity and used the koi flow sword technique, with all his strength, attacking one after another, and Uchiha Shimizu could only passively defend. For a time, the sound of ding ding dang dang, two swords in the field were heard endlessly. The sparks splashed out from the intersection of the sword blades, which showed the fierce battle. Uchiha Shimizu felt that the pressure was getting greater and greater. He wanted to fight back several times and then take the initiative, but he would be interrupted by Qing Ming every time. The other party seemed to be very familiar with his sword moves, and he could interrupt accurately whenever he made a move, which made him very uncomfortable. After thinking for a while, Uchiha Shimizu suddenly woke up. The other party was also Uchiha Ninja. The ability to practice the koi flow sword technique to this level is enough to show the high talent of swordsmanship. In addition, he has awakened the Sharingan, and there is no reason not to learn the Uchiha flow sword technique that is very suitable for Sharingan. Maybe, the other party's Uchiha fighting skill is more proficient than him. Only in this way can we explain why the other party can interrupt his moves repeatedly and accurately. Yes, it must be. Single quote. The more you think about it, the more likely Uchiha Shimizu feels. At the same time, he also realized that in close combat, he would most likely not be Qing Ming's opponent. We have to change our thinking. Uchiha Shimizu thought secretly in her heart, and at the same time she kept blocking the attack from Qing Ming. Chapter 82. Fierce Battle. Ding. Ding ding ding. Several more fights. Qing Ming suddenly realized that Uchiha Shimizu stopped fighting back, but just focused on defending. Once you turn to defense, even if your swordsmanship level falls one level behind, with the convenience of the Sharingan, there will be no risk of losing for a while. The other party's choice made Qing Ming feel a little confused. But soon, he figured out the causes and consequences. The probability is that he did it too obvious before, which led to the other party's suspicion that he had mastered the Uchiha flying technique, so he chose to seek change with stability. As soon as he thought of this, Qing Ming simply stopped hiding. Even if he used the Uchiha flowing sword technique, and combined with the koi flowing sword technique, the offensive became more and more fierce. As a matter of course, the other party can also Uchiha flying skills. Seeing Qing Ming's move, Uchiha Shisui affirmed his guess, but this was useless. He still had to bear the pressure he should bear. With Qing Ming's attacks again and again, Uchiha Shisui's pressure on him became increasingly greater. Even with Sharingan assistance, he could not hold on. Finally, after blocking Qing Ming's attack from the front, Uchiha Shimizu no longer resisted, but instead pointed his feet at the ground. With the help of the reaction force from the sword blade, the whole person quickly retreated. But once he retreated, he gave up the initiative to Qing Ming again. Qing Ming just took 2 steps when he saw Uchiha Shimizu suddenly pulled out of his ninja bag and sprinkled a handful of black things on his way forward. The magma in the Sharingan rotated rapidly. With its powerful insight, Qing Ming saw what it was, the caltrop. A special urchin tool that looks like a sea urchin and has a spike on the surface. If he stepped on this kick, at least most of his action will be nullified. Holding the chill in his heart, Qing Ming quickly stopped chasing. Looking at Uchiha Shimizu, who was still flying back, Qing Ming suddenly put away his short sword, then raised his hands and quickly completed the seal. Then, take a deep breath, gather the fire escape chakra in his throat, and then spit it out violently. Then a fist-sized fireball condensed and formed, and while flying towards Uchiha Shisui, it quickly rotated and became larger. The hot and high temperature emitted above can be clearly felt even in the second-floor corridor far away from the battlefield. This is not another ninjutsu, it is the sea-level ninjutsu known for its powerful single-body attack power, fire escape and fireball technique. Seeing the huge fireball hitting him straight, Uchiha Shimizu knew that it was too late to dodge at this time. Even if you try your best to avoid the frontal attack, you will still hurt him when the fireball explodes. It's over, so I can only fight head-on. Single quote. All kinds of thoughts flashed through my mind, and Uchiha Shimizu instantly made up his mind. Then I saw that on the way back, he suddenly raised his hands and completed the seal at a faster speed than Qing Ming just now. The next moment, he opened his mouth and spit out a fireball. As the fireball flew out, it quickly became bigger. This exact scene shows that the fire escape Rao fireball technique he just used. However, judging from his sealing speed, his proficiency is significantly higher than that of Qing Ming. Therefore, even after the seal was formed, he still successfully performed ninjutsu before the fireball released by Qing Ming. 2 fireballs, one big and one small, collided between the two, and for only a moment of stalemate, then exploded with a bang. The next moment, a powerful wind spread in all directions with the rolling heat wave, making everyone squint their eyes. At this moment, a crisp metal collision sounded in the field, followed by the second and third. In an instant, the collision sound became a hole. On the corridor on the second floor. Everyone looked closely. Aoming and Uchiha Shimizu kept throwing shuriken and kuma. The sound of metal and iron interception in the field is generated by their collision in the air. Such rapid and accurate throwing of the instrument made everyone dazzled. Suddenly, a sound of clothes being torn apart sounded. Although this sound is small, it is particularly harsh with the collision of a group of instruments. Everyone looked at the sound and saw a crack in the clothes on Uchiha Shimizu's left shoulder, and blood oozed out of them. Looking behind him, there was a shuriken with a little scarlet red color. Needless to say, everyone knows what's going on. Obviously, Qing Ming was slightly better in this round of confrontation. However, Qing Ming was not happy at all. Although he had long known that he was not a genius, he could achieve today all depends on his proficiency and his own efforts. However, when he truly realized the gap between himself and genius, he was still a little disappointed. He has practiced the nin gauge throwing for so long, and when facing Uchiha Shimizu, a genius 2 years younger than him, he can only gain a little advantage. Such a gap is inevitably frustrating. Fortunately, Qing Ming adjusted very quickly. So what about geniuses? Genius also has its limits, but he has no limits. A quick step is nothing, the real winner is the one who can persist in laughing to the end. Qing Ming has the confidence to be the one who laughs to the last time. Not to mention, now it is not Uchiha Shimizu who is one step faster than him, but he is one step faster than Uchiha Shimizu. So, there is no need for him to be frustrated. On the other side, Uchiha Shimizu looked at Qing Ming, whose emotions changed, and didn't understand what was going on, but this did not prevent him from seizing this rare opportunity and launching a counterattack. So he saw that several of them dodged away from the shuriken thrown by Qing Ming, and then quickly completed the seal and used the illusion Sharingan. Seeing this scene, Qing Ming said, "Not good," inwardly, and quickly mobilized chakra and activated the Sharingan with all his strength to prepare to fight against this attack from the spiritual level. Suddenly, both of them stood there, motionless. Only the fluctuations of mental power emitted could prove how intense the two's confrontation was. After a while, the two opened their eyes at the same time, and scarlet red slid from the corner of Qing Ming's mouth, showing that he was at a disadvantage in this illusion confrontation. Erasing the blood from the corner of his mouth, Qing Ming looked at Uchiha Shishui, whose breath was only slightly weaker than the distance. I couldn't help but sigh in my heart. I am a genius who can open the Manade Sharingan in the future. Now my mental power is better than me. That's right, in terms of mental power alone, Uchiha Shimizu has surpassed him. In this way, coupled with the use of the illusion first, his spirit was traumatized. Fortunately, this injury did not affect his battle. As soon as he thought of this, Qing Ming rushed forward with his sword again. Since he has a huge advantage in melee combat, there is no need to go far and go, just use his own advantages to break through the enemy. However, he wanted to use his strengths, but Uchiha Shimizu did not want to fall into the passiveness before. So, he didn't see much movement, and the instant body technique was already used, and he stayed away from Qing Ming at an extremely fast speed. Chapter 83 Wind Please book first. Swish 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 swish. Several shurikens were thrown out by Uchiha Shisui and hit Qing Ming everywhere. Two magpie in the pupils rotated rapidly, and Qing Ming instantly locked all the incoming shurikens and predicted their flight trajectory. Afterwards, his body flashed, avoiding most of the attacks. The only two remaining were also picked out by him with one sword. Then, he kept walking and approached Uchiha Shimizu again. Seeing this, Uchiha Shimizu also did the same thing. While throwing out Kyubi, he used the instant body technique to widen the distance. In this way, the two sides pulled back and forth, and when Uchiha Shimizu used up his ninja tools, he used ninjutsu attack. Although Qing Ming has a Sharingan that can avoid damage, he is still unable to get close to Uchiha Shimizu, which makes his close combat idea end in vain. Since that's the case, let's see whose ninjutsu is more powerful. Single quote. As soon as he thought of this, Qing Ming suddenly stopped, turned his wrist and inserted the short sword into the scabbard at his waist. Then, he raised his hands and quickly formed 6 handprints of Ziyin Shu Chou Mao Yin. He opened his mouth and spit out dozens or hundreds of fire balls. These fire were like seeds of phoenix flower, flying towards Uchiha Shimizu. So fast. Uchiha Shimizu was shocked and hurriedly dodged. But he really underestimated Qing Ming's proficiency in Fire Escape Phoenix Immortal Fire technique, and was caught off guard on the spot. It's not that Uchiha Shimizu was careless. It was because Qing Ming used the Fire Escape Rao Fireball technique before, and the level he showed was just that. With preconceived ideas, he would naturally think that his ninjutsu is average. Unexpectedly, his Fire Escape Phoenix Immortal Fire art is much more skillful than Fire Escape High Fireball art. In this way, it is normal to suffer a secret loss. But Qing Ming would not miss this opportunity. Looking at Uchiha Shishui, who was in a mess, Qing Ming did not pause at all and immediately launched the second wave of attacks. It is still the Fire Escape Phoenix Immortal Fire technique, but at the moment the fire ball exited, Qing Ming threw out several shurikens. If an ordinary person is facing this sudden mixed blow, he is likely to be hit. But Uchiha Shimizu is different, and his eyes never stay away from Qing Ming. So, the moment Qing Ming took action, he realized that this attack was different. Therefore, the dodging movements became more cautious. Despite this, he was still startled by the red shuriken flying out of the fireball. Feeling the burning sensation coming from it, Uchiha Shimizu couldn't imagine how painful it would have fallen on him. Fortunately, such an attack does not pose much threat to him who possesses the Sharingan. Uchiha Shimizu flashed a few times, avoiding this wave of attacks. Seeing this, Qing Ming said intimately, "What a pity," and then launched another attack. It's still, Fire Escape Phoenix Immortal Fire technique. Anyway, with his current chakra, it's not a problem to use it 50 or 60 times. Since the other party is unwilling to fight him in close combat, he will force the other party to submit. As the saying goes, if you keep it for a long time, you will lose it. He can carry out such an attack again and again. Uchiha Shimizu can avoid it once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, or even 10 times, 8 times. But as long as the other party makes a mistake once, it is his chance. Moreover, as time goes by, Qing Ming gradually gained a clearer understanding of Uchiha Shishui's behavioral habits. In this way, it will not be so difficult to predict the other party's actions with the Sharingan's insight. In this way, the pressure on Uchiha Shunhui will inevitably become greater and greater. At that time, you will either fight him head-on, or reveal your flaws during the dodge, and then be forced to fight him. In short, it is not a loss at all levels, so Qing Ming is not in a hurry. Now, he just needs to keep an eye on the opponent's actions and pay attention to the counterattack that the opponent may launch. Time passes by minute by minute. In the corridor on the second floor, the candidates who had been eliminated were already stunned. They looked at the battle below and felt that they were not on the same level as themselves. Just the strength shown by the two below, if they were the ones, they would probably have died 8 times. Are they really just shy? In the field, I don't know who expressed the thoughts of these candidates. But no one answered his question, and everyone was nervously staring at the battle below. Finally, after another nearly avoiding the bombing of the fire, Uchiha Shimizu launched a counterattack. Maybe, he knew that it would be of no benefit to him if he dragged on, so he simply did not stop and launched a counterattack. However, counterattacks also require strategy. First of all, close combat can be avoided. Secondly, ninjutsu attack can only serve as an auxiliary. Not long after he opened his eyes, he didn't learn much ninjutsu at all. His best skills were the Fire Escape Rao Fireball technique. But judging from the battle just now, such an attack could not hurt Qing Ming at all. Therefore, all you can rely on is illusion. Only in the previous illusion duel, he gained a certain advantage. Since this is the case, we naturally need to amplify this advantage again. However, Qing Ming could naturally think of what he could think of. Therefore, when the other party tried to use the Fire Escape High Fireball technique to interfere with his judgment, he did not waver at all. After using the momentary body technique, he took the initiative to dodge the attack of the big fireball. He immediately used the strategy and first used the magic shadow technique. The opponent was able to hurt him in an illusion duel. In addition to being higher than his mental power, the most important thing is that he used the illusion first. Otherwise, even if Qing Ming loses, he will not be injured. After all, the other party's current Sharingan is not a manlidoscope, and the difference is not very big in the case of double magma. For this reason, after taking the lead, Qing Ming did not fall into a disadvantage at all. Even because the action was too sudden, Uchiha Shimizu was not mentally prepared at all, and was so excited that he was screaming out by the severe pain caused by the magic shackle technique. After all, he is just a 9-year-old child. Although he is precocious, he is still unbearable to encounter this kind of torture suddenly. However, Qing Ming doesn't care whether the other party can bear it or not. Seeing that he was controlled by the illusion, he did not hesitate at all. His hands that had not yet put down immediately formed 4 seals of Si Chen Mao Yin. He opened his mouth and spit out a flame, which was the Fire Escape Dragon Fire technique. This technique has no other characteristics, it is just one word, fast. Especially in straight line attacks, it is faster than most fire escape ninjutsu. As for the torture tool, sorry, it's been used up long ago. Looking at the fierce flames, Uchiha Shimizu's pupils shook sharply, and endless fear suddenly arose in his heart. But a genius is a genius. Even though the situation is so urgent, he still forced himself to calm down. In the end, at the critical moment, with the double quota Sharingan and powerful mental power, he broke free from the control of the magic sharing technique, and flicked to the side. This made the examiner who was about to step forward unable to help but stop. The flames bombarded the floor, making a huge explosion, only affecting Uchiha Shimizu. This is also the disadvantage of the fire escape dragon fire technique. It can only attack in a straight line, but cannot turn. But this is enough. Before Uchiha Shisui could stand up, Qing Ming had already arrived at him with the instant body technique. Feeling the coldness coming from the neck, Uchiha Shimizu hesitated for a moment, but finally gave up resisting and whispered, "I lost." Chapter 84 Malicious. I lost. After hearing Uchiha Shisui's slightly unwilling words, Qing Ming withdrew the short sword between his neck. To be honest, he won this battle, but it wasn't very good. First of all, he did not fully suppress the frontal battle, which led to him being able to use frequent use of ninjutsu to force the other party to reveal flaws. However, this is not only slow in efficiency and consumes a lot, but also depends on the enemy's performance. If the opponent this time is not Uchiha Shimizu, but another experienced Uchiha ninja, maybe his method will not work. Even if it happens again, Uchiha Shimizu would not have revealed flaws so easily. In this way, the battle will inevitably drag down. As the saying goes, it will change later. If every battle he will delay for so long in the future, it is hard to guarantee that he will not fail. Therefore, it is best to choose to fight quickly. The premise for a quick battle is that your own combat power is far greater than that of the opponent. Qing Ming will not worry in the future. With the proficiency panel, his strength will sooner or later be ahead of others. But now, even for a long time in the future, he will never be invincible in the world. Therefore, it is highly likely to meet an opponent with equal strength. In this way, you can't expect a quick battle. By then, if he wants to win, he may have to face a similar situation as today. At that time, if he didn't want to be as passive as today, he had to make up for his shortcomings. That's right, it's a shortcoming. After today's battle, Qing Ming found that he seemed to lack the means of large-scale attacks. Whether it is the Fire Escape Rao Fireball technique, or the Fire Escape Dragon Fire technique, they all focus on single-body attacks. Even the Fire Escape Phoenix Immortal Fire technique, known as group attack, can only exert the so-called group attack effect when facing people who are much worse than themselves. When facing a ninja like Uchiha Shimizu, who has a small difference in strength, even if all attacks are gathered together, you may not necessarily hurt your opponent, let alone group attacks. As for his other skills, then there will be no group injury effect. So, strictly speaking, he does not have any means of large-scale attacks. It's meaningless, this is his weakness. If he had a large-scale attack ninjutsu today, even if Uchiha Shimizu wanted to avoid head-on combat, he would probably not be able to do it. How do you need to release ninjutsu frequently in order to show your flaws? Let's think about the battle scenes of two top masters, Hashirama Senju and Madara Uchiha, which move was not done to change the world. In this case, any strategy, combat wisdom, ninjutsu, physical skills and illusion are just clouds. Long vaguely, Qing Ming had some clarity, maybe this is the way he should take. In the last game, Uchiha Aomi, win. At this moment, the examiner's voice came from the side, interrupting Qing Ming's thinking. Immediately afterwards, a burst of cheers came from the court. It is still in the second half of the Third Ninja World War. Konoha has not yet encountered the Nine Tails Rebellion, and the senior officials led by Danzo have not yet activated public opinion guidance that is unfavorable to the Uchiha clan. Therefore, most Konoha ninjas do not have much hostility towards the Uchiha clan. Therefore, after Qing Ming won, they were not stingy with applause. Especially those candidates, after seeing the power of Sharingan, they couldn't help but look envious. However, in this envious gaze, Qing Ming suddenly noticed a malice that was unconcealed. Qing Ming frowned slightly, looked along the ceiling, and then saw a familiar figure in a corner of the corridor on the second floor. He is thin, but his muscles are very strong. He is wearing a gray-black kimono, with brown hair, two crossed scars on his chin, his right eye is wrapped in bandages, and his only left eye is so narrow and long, giving people an extremely sinister feeling. Who else could it be if it wasn't Shimura Danzo? When did this stir fighter come here? Single quote. Qing Ming was confused, but he didn't look at the other person much. Although the other party showed malicious intentions when they first met, Qing Ming was very upset. But his family knows his family affairs, and with his current strength, he still cannot challenge the other party's authority. In this case, you will naturally hide as far as you can. He is not a wise man, and he still has to jump if he is not strong enough. That way, it has no effect except for a temporary relief in your heart. Even, it will cause death. The correct way to do it should be to improve your strength and then slap the other party to death. Seeing Qing Ming looking away, Shimura Danzo looked at the root ninja beside him and said, "Before tonight, I want all the information about these two people." "Yes, Lord Danzang." After answering, the root ninja disappeared. At the same time, Sarutobi Hiruzen walked to the front of the stage, encouraged everyone a few words, and announced that the Chunin exam was over. As for the results, it will take 2 days to announce it. Afterwards, the candidates present followed their respective teachers or orders to Zongren and left the central tower one after another. Before Qing Ming could move, two figures came to him. It is Uchiha Shito and Uchiha Shimizu. Let's go together. Uchiha Jita spoke. Upon hearing this, Qing Ming agreed without any hesitation. The appearance of Danzang made him feel a little more alert. Now that I can follow Uchiha Shiruto, the Uchiha, I naturally cannot ask for it. More than half an hour later, Qing Ming bid farewell to Uchiha Shito and Uchiha Shimizu and returned home. The first thing I did when I went home was to sense everything around me, and after confirming that there was nothing abnormal, I breathed a sigh of relief. No wonder he was so fussy, it was because Danzo's malice was too obvious. He knew very well that Danzang was a person who used any means to achieve his goals. It is undoubtedly a dream to expect such people to abide by the unspoken rules of the village. Therefore, he must be cautious. Anyway, he couldn't stay in the village for long, so there's nothing wrong with being careful now. When you return to the battlefield, it will not be so easy for Danzo to have any bad thoughts. Retracting his thoughts, Qing Ming began to think about the problem of making up for his shortcomings. A large-scale attack-type fire escape ninjutsu. What Qing Ming can think of is the various fire escape ninjutsu performed by Jiraiya, as well as the fire escape how fire extinguishing, and fire escape how fire extinguishing, performed by Uchiha Madara. The former needs to be obtained from Jiraiya. Although Jiraiya is not difficult to speak, it is impossible for others to teach him what is under the guise of both parties. And the latter, maybe it can be found in the collection of the Uchiha clan. Single quote. If you really can't find it, you can wait until he develops chakra with other attributes before looking for similar ninjutsu. Living people can't let urine suffocate to death. He muttered to himself. Qing Ming no longer thought about it and turned to today's practice. Although the Chunin exam has just passed, I cannot relax even if I practice for a moment. Only in this way can he ensure that. Chapter 85 Choice. 3 days later, Qing Ming received a notice of promotion to Zongren. After going to the Naruto building to complete the registration and production, I received 2 sets of Konoha Chunin vests. Since then, he has become a true Zongren. Walking out of the Naruto building, Qing Ming paused for a moment and suddenly said to himself, since you have already come out, then go to the library in the clan. I don't know if my application has been approved. As he walked, Qing Ming thought so in his heart. As the saying goes, there is no order without rules. In Uchiha, whether it is the ninja level promotion, the awakening of the Sharingan, or the second or third evolution of the Sharingan, you can get a free opportunity to enter the clan's library. During this period, you can read any books and scrolls, but if you choose to take them away, you can only take one. Just so happened that Qing Ming had just been promoted to Zongren, and awakened the Sharingan again, and evolved into the second Guyu not long ago. In this way, in theory, he could take away 3 books or scrolls from the library. Therefore, there should be no problem with the application. Sure enough, when Qing Ming came to the library to inquire, he was immediately told that the application had been approved. So, Qing Ming no longer wasted his time and immediately asked to go in. Uchiha Ninja, who was in charge of guarding the library, did not refuse. After a careful inspection of him, he was released. When he came to this huge library, Qing Ming finally understood what the foundation was. Apart from some secret heritage, almost all the books and scrolls collected by the Uchiha clan over the past 1,000 years are stored here. If Qing Ming was worried about not being able to find a ninjutsu that suited his wishes, then he would not be worried at all now. With this collection of books, isn't it easy to find a few ninjutsu that absorbs chakra or has a large attack range? However, it turns out that this is not an easy thing. Although there are many books here, they are not arranged according to the rules. Therefore, it is not easy to find a ninjutsu for a specific function. Fortunately, Qing Ming has clear goals, and with Sharingan assistance, he finally found what he wanted before the end of his reading time. The first is a chakra absorption technique. That's right, it was the strange ninjutsu that Naruto's Chunin examination more than 10 years later, the Oinin village spy Akatsuki used when he dealt with Sasuke. Qing Ming originally thought it was a unique ninjutsu created by Orochimaru. I never thought that I could see it here. In this case, the so-called chakra absorption technique cannot be created by Orochimaru. This point can also be seen from the ninjutsu itself. First of all, the flaws of this ninjutsu are too great. Among them, the biggest problem is that the speed of absorbing chakra is too slow. Take the battle between Akatsuki and Sasuke for example. At that time, Sasuke had been tortured to death by the curse seal and had experienced another fierce battle. But even in this case, the red copper armor was unable to drain the other party's chakra in a short period of time, and was even killed in the end. This is simply not too weak. In this way, coupled with the prerequisites that require physical contact to be activated, this technique has completely become a waste of money. Apart from abuse, there is no practical value at all. I can contact you and control it for a period of time. What kind of chakra needs to be absorbed? Will it not be fragrant if I have one knife to solve it? How could it be created with such a great flawed ninjutsu, who pursues perfection with Orochimaru's personality? Even if it is created, it will probably take all your efforts to improve it instead of just leaving it alone. Qing Ming estimated that the other party had obtained this technique by chance. After studying it, he threw it to the red copper armor, which was regarded as a treasure by him. But I have to say that this technique can indeed be regarded as a treasure for him. Nothing else, the framework of this technique is complete and the intention is very high. This means that he can continuously raise the upper limit of this technique by trying to achieve an effect that even the creator dares to imagine. For example, the science of heart reflection. The original intention of this technique was to help the Uchiha clan ninja awaken the Sharingan. But as he continues to upgrade, he can now play a considerable role in the evolution of the Sharingan, which is probably something that the creators did not expect. Therefore, if the chakra absorption technique has defects, as long as he continues to improve his level, those defects will eventually disappear slowly. At that time, he might be able to use this technique to forcibly plunder the chakra of the tailed beast, thereby realizing the creator's dream. Yes, the original intention of this technique was to use the chakra of the tailed beast for one's own use. It is precisely because of this that Qing Ming said that the idea of this technique is very high. Unfortunately, the effect of ninjutsu was far less than expected and eventually became a useless person. Retracting his thoughts, Qing Ming looked at the second book. What is recorded on it is not a ninjutsu, but some experiences about developing the second chakra attribute. Yes, Qing Ming planned to wait for the fire escape phoenix immortal fire technique to achieve perfection, so he began to develop the second chakra attribute. And he has already set the target, that is Fengdian. For this reason, he also left his third choice to a wind escape ninjutsu, called Wind Escape Great Breakthrough. Although this is just a C-level ninjutsu, its power is strongly related to the input chakra. As long as the caster's ability is strong enough, its coverage range can reach hundreds or thousands of square meters, and its power cannot be underestimated. In this way, he can make up for his shortcomings in insufficient attack methods on a large scale. That's right, Qing Ming was not found in the library of the expected fire escape high fire extinguishing, and fire escape high fire extinguishing. I don't know if it was hidden in some corner or was taken away by Uchiha Madara. Anyway, he didn't see it. This is also one of the reasons why he is preparing to develop wind escape as the second attribute. After putting away the 3 books, Qing Ming stopped staying. After some inspection, he left the library and then returned home directly. Sitting in the cultivation room, Qing Ming recalled the village's arrangements. According to the above notice, he will have about a month to rest next. In 1 month, we will return to the battlefield of the Rain Country. Obviously, the village deliberately stayed for a while to allow the new Zongren to improve their strength. From this point of view, the battle ahead should not have reached the most urgent moment. Otherwise, let alone giving them time to improve their strength, it would be considered as if they could not squeeze them out. However, no matter what, it is always a good thing to have a month off. Just so happens, he has several skills to be upgraded. This month is enough for him to improve his strength a little more. As soon as he thought of this, Qing Ming no longer thought about it and started his own cultivation. Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audiobook YouTube channel. Chapter 86. Let's set off again in 1 month. Time passes like a flash of time, and in a blink of an eye, a month has passed. That evening, Uchiha clan land. In a training ground. Qing Ming quickly completed the seal with his hands, opened his mouth and spit out a large piece of flame. These flames differentiate and condense in the air, and eventually form dozens or hundreds of small fire that looked like the seeds of the immortal flower. The Sharingan in Qing Ming's pupils rotated, and these fire scattered and smashed towards more than 10 nearby trees according to his wishes. Boom 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 boom. A series of subtle explosions sounded. The fireball hit the big trees, leaving behind charred holes the size of fists. Looking at these pits, Qing Ming nodded with satisfaction and said to himself, sure enough, after the fire escape phoenix immortal fire technique was promoted to LV4, both plasticity and power have increased a lot. In the past, at LV3, he used the fire escape phoenix immortal fire technique and needed to spit out the fire one by one. Although the speed was not slow, there were some gaps in the end. And this gives the enemy room to dodge. Now, as the fire escape phoenix immortal fire technique rises to LV4, he begins to touch the morphological changes and nature changes of the fire attribute chakra. The former allows him to spit out the fire escape chakra at one time, then differentiate and condense, and finally control all fire to attack together. As long as the time for flame condensation and forming is shortened, the enemy's chance of dodging will become smaller and smaller. And this is enough, just need to continue to practice the proficiency of fire escape phoenix immortal fire technique. The latter makes the fire he differentiated more aggressive. In the past, although those fire hitting trees caused a greater range of damage, their power was not as powerful as that of now. Now, although these fire can only burst into a hole the size of a fist, the high temperature and bursting effects contained in it are far more threatening to people than before. It can be said that just one skill has improved his strength a little. Not to mention that in the past month, his other skills have also improved considerably. Panel. With a thought, Qing Ming opened the proficiency panel. The next moment, a familiar light blue light curtain appeared. Name: Uchiha Aomi. Age: 11 years old. Physical constitution: 9. Spirit: 11. Chakra: 5610, 6109. Right pointing arrow 10621. Bloodline: Sharingan double Egiyama 1/5000th. Right pointing arrow 354 5000ths. Skill: Chakra refining, LV4 510 2000ths. Right pointing arrow LV4 792 2000ths. Fire escape: the art of the great fireball, LV2 65 500ths. Fire escape Phoenix immortal fire art, LV3 710 1000ths. Right pointing arrow LV4 75 2000ths. Fire escape dragon fire technique, LV2 35 500ths. Instant body technique, LV3 511 1000ths. Right pointing arrow LV3 870 1000ths. Shadow clone technique, LV0 5 100ths. Chakra absorption, LV1 1 200th. Healing technique, LV1 65 200ths. Right pointing arrow LV2 10 500ths. Magic: the art of shackles, LV3 2 1000ths. Right pointing arrow LV3 355 1000ths. Illusion Sharingan, LV2 65 500ths. Right pointing arrow LV2 425 hundredths. The art of reflecting the heart, LV5 446 5000ths. Right pointing arrow LV5 1181 5000ths. Konoha flow sword technique, LV4 522 thousandths. Right pointing arrow LV4 1462 thousand. Uchiha flying skill, LV4 1 2000th. Right pointing arrow LV4 1205 2000. Throwing tools, LV4 352 thousandths. Right pointing arrow LV4 1622 thousand. Chakra control, LV3 221 thousandths. Right pointing arrow LV3 405 1000ths. 3 body techniques, LV3 0/0. It can be seen that in the past month, in addition to the fire escape Phoenix immortal fire technique, upgraded to 1 level, the healing technique was also from LV1 liver to LV2, and the treatment effect was even greater. In addition, there are momentary body technique, magic Sharingan, koi flow sword technique, Uchiha flow sword technique, and Nindian tool throwing, which have also been significantly improved. Especially the 2 skills of momentary body technique and illusion Sharingan. One has proficiency to LV3 871 thousandths, and the other has reached LV2 425 hundredths, which is only 1 step away from upgrading. Unfortunately, he will set off next year and return to the battlefield of the Rain country, otherwise his strength will be improved. Shaking his head secretly, Qing Ming turned his gaze to 2 sword techniques. After a month of practice, their proficiency has improved a lot. Unfortunately, I still didn't advance. In this way, even if he wants to speed up the evolution of Sharingan, he will not be able to do so. Thinking of the evolution of Sharingan, Qing Ming looked at the bloodline column, Sharingan double Ufinu 354 5000ths. At this current progress, it will take at least 15 months for his Sharingan to evolve into the 3 essays. This is something he can't accept. Fortunately, he has learned the chakra absorption technique. When he returned to the battlefield and waited for an opportunity to find some enemies and extracted their chakra to make up for himself, he would have more chakras. By then, if all these chakras are used in the practice of inflection of the heart, the evolution of Sharingan will naturally accelerate. In addition, there are the Konoha flow sword technique and Uchiha flow sword technique. Although there has not been a breakthrough, it is not far from the breakthrough. By the time they break through, he will drive his physical constitution attributes to further increase the amount of chakra available every day, and his Sharingan will evolve faster. Unfortunately, his soul reflecting art and chakra refining art have no hope of promotion in a short period of time. Otherwise, this speed will be faster. Forget it, the snake swallows the elephant in a lack of heart, so it's better to do it step by step. With a mutter, Qing Ming closed the panel and continued to practice the fire escape Phoenix immortal fire technique, as well as several other ninjutsu and illusions. He returned home only after the sun set. After eating a little and filling his stomach, he began to practice again. In the past month, he has basically lived this kind of life. He has been practicing for the rest of his time except eating, sleeping and resting. During the day, I practice ninjutsu, illusion and swordsmanship in the training ground, and at night, I improve the evolution of Sharingan at home, and accumulate chakra for the next day's practice. In short, I haven't been idle for a moment. Although life is boring, it is quite fulfilling. In the blink of an eye, several hours passed. Time is late at night. Indoor training room. Qing Ming opened his eyes, yawned, then opened the panel, and glanced at the chakra volume on IT 9106 points. Feeling that his body had reached its limit, Qing Ming no longer used the chakra refining technique. After washing his face a little, he returned to the bedroom. After counting breaths, a slight snoring came, and Qing Ming had already entered his dream. No words all night. The next day, early in the morning. It was dawn. After breakfast, Qing Ming came to the square in front of the Naruto building. Far from afar, he saw Uchiha Shimizu. In the past month, he has been able to see the other party in the training ground from time to time, and occasionally practices swordsmanship. Although he is not very familiar, he is not unfamiliar. Qing Ming likes Uchiha Shimizu's personality very much. Although it is sometimes ideal, at least it will not be as easy as Uchiha Itachi later, it is easy to go to extremes. Of course, it is also possible that Uchiha Itachi would go to extremes when he saw Uchiha Shimizu die in front of him, but no matter what, Qing Ming did not recognize his behavior of slaughtering the entire clan. However, since he came to this world, inherited Uchiha Aomiya's identity and enjoyed the benefits of the clan, he would not let such a thing happen again. As for Uchiha Itachi, the naughty child is disobedient and he will just give him a lesson. If he had not had such strength at that time, he deserved to be killed by the other party. All kinds of thoughts flashed through my mind, and Qing Ming came to the crowd. Next, they will go to the battlefield of the Rain country together. Chapter 87 Secretly Attacked. After waiting for about half an hour, after everyone arrived, a Konoha Shanjinin stood up. This person Qing Ming knew him, and he was the examiner of the second test of the Chunin exam a month ago, Tanakawa Maki. This person is the captain of their trip, and he led them back to the battlefield of the Rain country. Fucking sex. Tanakawa Maki clapped her palms. After attracting everyone's eyes, he spoke, some of you came down from the battlefield of the Rain country, and some of you went to the battlefield of the Rain country for the first time, but. Speaking of this, his eyes glanced at the audience, and his voice suddenly became extremely serious, saying, but, whether it is the former or the latter, I hope you will absolutely obey my orders in the next few days. Did you understand? Everyone looked at each other, and then responded in unison, I understand. In this trip, except for Tanakawa Maki, the real ultimate ninja, there are only 3 high-end combat powers in the team, and the rest are either Zongnin or ultimate ninja. The other party asked to obey his orders, and naturally no one would jump out to refute. What's more, the other party is the captain appointed by the village, and they should obey. But Qing Ming inexplicably felt something was wrong. It seemed that something happened in secret that he didn't know, which made Konoha a little vigilant, otherwise Tanakawa Maki would not have been so serious. In fact, this is true. In the past half a month, the teams heading to various battlefields have been ambushed and attacked several times. If this happens, the village should send additional personnel or temporarily suspend support, and then continue after the hidden danger is eliminated. But until now, Konoha has been understaffed, but there is no shortage of people on the front line, so she can only bite the bullet and go to the spot. That's why Tanakawa Maki is so serious. Seeing that everyone had no objection, Tanakawa Maki nodded and then said, okay, let's go. After saying that, he ran out of the village first. Seeing this, the others immediately followed. Soon, the group left the village. At the same time, Gen's headquarters base. Inside the Tuanzang office, a knock on the door suddenly rang out. Dong 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 dong. Hearing the sound, Danzang said without raising his head, come in. Crunch. The door was pushed open, and a root ninja walked in and knelt on one knee and said, Sir, Uchiha Aomi and Uchiha Shimizu set off. Oh. Hearing this, Danzo finally put down the documents in his hand, raised his head and asked, are there any Uchiha canon accompanying him? No, sir. The root ninja below replied affirmatively. Is that true? Hearing this, Duanzang murmured and tapped the table with his index finger. After a moment, he decisively ordered, immediately notify the Kyu team to take action. Everything must be carried out strictly in accordance with the plan, and no mistakes are allowed. Yes, Lord Danzang. After answering, the root ninja below disappeared. Looking at the disappearing back of the other party, Danzo snorted coldly and murmured to himself, Ha Uchiha. Realizing that the road may be less peaceful this time, Qing Ming reduced his time to practice along the way and always maintained his energy to deal with emergencies at any time. As it turns out, his caution is right. When I left the village and was still in the territory of the fire a few days ago, everything was still normal. But when they stepped into the territory of the Rain country, they were attacked before they could go far. The attack on them was not someone else, but a group of Iwa ninja. Although the whole process seemed like a chance encounter, Qing Ming keenly saw the proud look of, it's true that there is someone here, in the eyes of the leading Iwai Shangnan. Looking at their evidence of advancement and retreat, they obviously have prepared themselves and know that someone will pass by here. So the question is, the path they took this time is different from the past, and it is very remote. How did the enemy know? There is an insider. Single quote. A thought suddenly came out, and Qing Ming suddenly had a bad premonition in his heart. If there is really an insider, then the insider will either get the corresponding information from the top leaders of the village. But no matter which one it is, it means that the enemy knows them far more than they know about the enemy. And the ambition in intelligence will inevitably lead them to an extremely disadvantageous situation. In fact, this is true. After only a few minutes of fighting, they were at a disadvantage. Several people were injured, and some of the Shinin had even died. Of course, this is not only because of the unequal intelligence, but also because the enemy took the lead in setting up ambush. In terms of strength, these group of rock ninjas may not be much better than them. After all, although this place is not considered Konoha's core defense circle, it is still within Konoha's defense zone, and the Iwa ninja can mobilize limited personnel. Therefore, the current situation is actually caused by them being caught off guard, otherwise they would not have been so passive. In the chaos, Tanikawa Maki shouted at Qing Ming and Uchiha Shimizu, "Qing Ming, you defend the left wing, Shimizu, and be optimistic about the enemy on the right." After saying that, without waiting for the two of them to respond, he shouted loudly, "Everyone, follow me to break through." Qing Ming originally wanted to take a wave of water and see what the situation was. Unexpectedly, Tanikawa Maki was assigned such a difficult task directly. After a little hesitation, Qing Ming finally chose to follow the other party's orders. Anyway, he has seen it. Although the Iwa ninja present is pretty good, it is a bit worse than him. This level is not too threatening to him. Therefore, it's nothing to put in some effort. The only thing you need to be vigilant is the possible internal ghost, so when you take action, you should focus on defense and cover. As soon as he thought of this, Qing Ming instantly broke away from his opponent in front of him and came to the left wing of the team with a momentum technique. Then, he quickly completed the seal with both hands and performed the ninjutsu fire escape Phoenix Immortal Fire technique. Large pieces of flames were sprayed out by him, and then they quickly differentiated and condensed, turning into dense fireballs. These fire were controlled by him and scattered at the rock ninjas. At the front, a rock ninja turned his head to avoid the attack of the fireball, felt the hot and high temperature coming from it, and immediately shouted loudly, "Be careful, everyone." When the others heard this, they all felt terrified and hurriedly avoided the flying fireball. The fire like seeds of the phoenix flower were flying all over the sky, instantly disrupting the rhythm of Iwa Nin's attack. Qing Ming is like this, and Uchiha Shimizu is not much inferior. He was holding a short sword in his hand, and his body technique was used one after another, like a ghost, and rushed around the Iron Ninja team, causing chaos in their formation. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Tanikawa Maki resisted the enemy's attack while leading the team to break through. About half an hour later, Qing Ming and his group finally escaped from the siege of the Iron Ninja. Although they had not completely escaped from the pursuit, they were not as passive as before. After a break, Tanikawa Maki counted the casualties and confirmed that she could not defeat the enemy. She made a new arrangement for the entire team. He asked a special ninja to lead the team to continue moving forward, while he and two other special ninjas, plus 8 central ninjas to stay to stop the enemy. No surprises, Qing Ming and Uchiha Shisui are among the 8 people. He has witnessed the last battle between Ao Ming and Uchiha Shimizu Junin exam with his own eyes. Tanikawa Maki is very familiar with their strength and knows that their combat power is far beyond that of ordinary Juninin, so he will naturally keep them. Ao Ming and Uchiha Shimizu have nothing to say about this. Just so happened that Qing Ming also wanted to figure out where the enemy got their route. For some reason, Qing Ming had a vague feeling that this matter was not as simple as he had expected. If he didn't understand these, he couldn't sleep well after that. Chapter 88 Chakra Absorption. The drizzle fell from the sky, hitting the leaves in the forest, gathering together, falling to the ground, making a dripping sound. Iwagen and his group were walking quickly. Suddenly, a person in front stopped and looked down at his feet. After his soul was rising, he shouted loudly, "Get back." While speaking, the whole person had retreated. Seeing this, the others did not understand why, but immediately rushed backwards. At this moment, a series of explosions suddenly rang out. In front, several red fireballs rose up, and the high-temperature flames instantly evaporated the surrounding rain and ignited many trees. "It's the detonation talisman," Iwagen shouted. The next moment, a strong wind was blowing with the rolling heat waves, making them almost unable to open their eyes. At this moment, dozens of kunai flew out from the secret and rushed directly towards Iwanin's team. "Careful!" The leader Iwagen shouted, pulled out Kowloon and kept waving to block the Kowloon coming ahead. Seeing this, other Iwagen also followed suit and resisted attacks from all directions. I have to say that these group of Iwa ninjas have good combat qualities. Although they were caught off guard, they quickly stabilized their formation and no one was killed in the battle. Even few were injured, and the injuries were not very serious. The first wave of attacks did not work. Tanikawa Maki decisively gave up her plan to confront her head and issued an order to implement Plan B. The so-called Plan B is actually to fight guerrillas and drag the Iwagen into this forest so that another team of people can stay away from the battlefield as soon as possible. As long as you set a little distance Iwa Nin dares not pursue it. This is the Konoha defense zone after all. The risk of pursuing it is too high. Even Iwagen didn't dare to hang out with them here for too long. Once Konoha's support arrived, what awaited them was dumplings. For this reason, Tanikawa Maki dared to bring a few people to block the Iwa ninja. Several whistles of varying lengths sounded in the forest. Qing Ming carefully distinguished for a moment and understood the meaning. Plan B. After pondering for a moment, Qing Ming murmured, okay. Since he learned the chakra absorption technique, he has not officially practiced it. Now that he has such an opportunity, he certainly needs to test it. Thinking of this, Qing Ming left the place. At the same time, Iron Ninja, who avoided the first wave of attacks, seemed to be afraid of being attacked continuously. The team quickly divided into several groups and rushed to the direction where Kuwu shot just now. In a short while, there were fierce fighting sounds in the forest. 3 Iwai Zongnan came to Qing Ming. Qing Ming was hiding on the tree branch, with a pair of scarlet and blood-red Sharingans staring straight at the 3 people below, like a hunter staring at the prey. Lower. Iwagen suddenly shivered. Turning his head to his companion, he asked, Shi-song, do you have a feeling that something seems to be staring at us? What? Do you feel this way, too? Ionin, named Shi-song, suddenly changed his face and screamed in surprise. At this time, all 3 Iwa ninjas realized that something was wrong. But it was too late. Qing Ming jumped down from the tree branch and suddenly came to the Iron Ninja who had just made a sound. A cold light suddenly appeared, and Qing Ming waved the short sword in his hand. Shi-song raised the kunai in his hand and wanted to resist. But at this moment, a pair of scarlet and blood-red Sharingans reflected into his pupils, causing him to feel a moment of loss of consciousness. The next moment, the dagger cut across his chest, leaving a deep bone-visible wound. In just a moment, the Iwai Zongnan lost his combat power. Shi-song. Iwa Nin, who had just asked, saw this scene and immediately shouted. At the same time, he also threw out the kunai in his hand, hoping to stop Qing Ming from finishing the knife. However, Qing Ming had no intention of finishing the attack at all. He flashed, and while avoiding Koshi, he rushed towards another Iwa ninja. The distance is too close, and the person can only wave the kunai. For a moment, there were endless sounds of dinging. Iwa Nin, who had just thrown out the kuna, finally reacted, took out a kuna again, cooperated with his teammates, and attacked Qing Ming. However, Qing Ming's strength is not comparable to these 2 ordinary Zongnan. Dripping cold sweat mixed with rain slid down the cheeks of the 2 Iwa ninjas. Finally, after another counterattack failed, an Iwa ninja suddenly opened the distance, put away the kunai, and began to form seals, as if he was preparing to perform some ninja skills. But Qing Ming's reaction was so fast that he found an opportunity when the other party escaped, and the Sharingan's hypnosis ability was activated. Yan Nin, who was fighting with him, looked silent and was pierced by Qing Ming with a short sword to his right arm. Then he kicked it out and smashed it the tree trunk not far away. Puff. A mouthful of blood spurted out of the mouth of the Yanin. He didn't care about the pain in his body and struggled to stand up. But at this moment, 3 more kunai were thrown out by Qing Ming, accurately piercing through his other arm and 2 thighs. The severe pain finally caused the Iwa ninja to lose its combat power. At this time, the Iwa ninja who had escaped from the battle had just completed the seal and the ninjutsu had not been used yet. Just as he was lost, Qing Ming rushed over with his sword. Seeing this, the Iron Ninja quickly calmed down, slapped his palm on the ground, and performed the ninjutsu earth escape and mud slap. The next moment, the land under Qing Ming's feet softened and turned into a swamp. But his reaction speed was too fast and no one restrained it, so before the ninjutsu took full effect, he had already left the coverage. Thu. The sound of a sharp blade passing through the flesh and blood sounded. Qing Ming held a short sword in his hand and instantly cut off a large piece of flesh and blood from the shoulders of the Zanyan ninja. If the opponent hadn't been dodging quickly, the sword would have hit the opponent's neck. But I can hide from the first day of the lunar month and cannot escape from the 15th day of the lunar month. Originally, these 2 Iwa ninjas were not his opponents when they joined forces, and now the other party is the only one left, so that is even less his opponent. After just a dozen moves, Qing Ming sacked another arm of the other party. Then, his hands quickly completed the seal, and a ball of chakra appeared in the palm of his right hand, and Qing Ming pressed the back of the other party's head. The next moment, a steady stream of chakra overflowed from the other party's body, passed through the chakra acupoint in his right palm, and poured into his body. That's right, what Qing Ming is performing is the chakra absorption technique. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. About 20 seconds later, Qing Ming let go of his palm, and the Yan Nin in front of him fell softly to the ground. Qing Ming opened the panel and glanced, and the chakra increased by almost 1,000 points. Comparing the process of extracting chakra just now, Qing Ming roughly figured out the effect of LV1's chakra absorption technique. He can draw about 100 chakras from the enemy's body every second and convert half of them into his chakra. Although the loss is a bit serious, no matter how small the mosquito legs are, they are still fleshy, and Qing Ming does not dislike it. What's more, as the chakra absorption technique continues to be upgraded, these shortcomings can be optimized one by one, which is not a big deal. Opening parenthesis. Chapter 89. Retracting his thoughts, Qing Ming picked up the short sword at his hand, waved it down, and easily cut off the throat of Yan Nin in front of him. In fact, if you want to maximize the effect, you should not directly kill the other party. Instead, he imprisoned him and kept refining chakra, and then he extracted it every once in a while, so that he could continuously obtain chakra. But in this situation, he is obviously not allowed to do so. Moreover, he has no good means to control the other party at the moment. Since this is the case, Qing Ming could only endure the pain and deal with the other party. Retracting his gaze, Qing Ming looked at the Yan Nin who had his limbs pierced by him, and walked straight over without any pause. On the way, he made a seal again and performed the chakra absorption technique, and his right hand once again wrapped a layer of chakra. What are you going to do? Before Qing Ming could approach, the Yan Nin screamed in horror. Obviously, the other party saw what he had done just now. But Qing Ming didn't care. He flashed and came to him and grabbed his face. The next moment, a steady stream of chakra overflowed from the other party's body and poured into his body through his right hand. The man had a little more chakra left. Qing Ming sucked it for nearly 30 seconds before he completely squeezed out the chakra in his body. And he also had more than 1,000 chakra. No time wasted, Qing Ming used his hands slightly, and then he heard a click sound, and the neck of Ionin in front of him was twisted by him. Qing Ming stood up and came to the third person, the man who was first cut down by him. He had already fallen into a coma due to the injuries on his chest. This saves Qing Ming a lot of trouble. After crossing the pool of blood under his feet, Qing Ming pressed his hand on the other party's back, and it took almost 20 seconds to drain the other party's chakra. Without chakra's life, this man lost his vitality in just a few breaths. At this point, Qing Ming solved 3 enemies, and in addition to the consumed chakra, he also made a net profit of more than 3,000 chakra. And these chakras are enough for him to use the heart reflection technique more than 18 times, which is translated into the evolution of the Sharingan, which is 6 points. If you accumulate 4 more points, you will catch up with his progress in the day. In other words, it was 1 day ahead of his Sharingan to evolve into the 3 essays. Although it was only 1 day, don't forget that Qing Ming only absorbed 3 ordinary Zhongnan chakras this time. If the target number is larger or the level is higher, he will definitely absorb more chakra, which will save more time. Not only that, his current chakra absorption technique is only LV1, and the loss when converting chakra is close to 50%. If he is more proficient and loses less, he will get more chakra, which will undoubtedly further accelerate the evolution of his Sharingan. In addition, the chakras consumed during the battle are not wasted, they are all converted into proficiency of other skills. In this way, when practicing again, Qing Ming can appropriately reduce his investment in these skills and instead focus more chakra on the practice of spiritual of heart. In this way, the evolution of his Sharingan will be further accelerated. Thinking of this, Qing Ming couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. He finally saw hope. Swish 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 swish. At this moment, several kunai suddenly shot from the side. Yu Guang caught a glimpse of this scene. The Sharingan in Qing Ming's pupils rotated rapidly, and his whole body was like a cannonball. He kicked the ground with his feet and bounced out. However, as soon as he landed, several more kunai shot. These kunai's shooting angles were very tricky and just stuck to the edge of his vision. Even if he swung his sword to block it, he could not completely block it. As a last resort, Qing Ming had to dodge again. However, what awaited him was several sneak attacks from Kyushu. Qing Ming had no choice but to continue dodging. In this way, after 5 consecutive times, Qing Ming finally found an opportunity to counterattack. Dong 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 dong. With the help of a big tree to block some of the Cuba, Qing Ming waved the short sword in his hand and shot down the other Cuba. Then, he inserted his short sword to the ground, and quickly completed the seal with his hands. In the direction of Kyubi's attack, he was a fire escape Rao fireball technique. The huge fireball was wrapped in a rolling heat wave and hit the grass. Suddenly, a figure rushed out from inside. Seeing this, Qing Ming immediately took out several shurikens and threw them at the other party. However, this man reacted very quickly. When he saw the shuriken attack, he immediately waved the kua in his hand and knocked the shuriken away that was blocking the road. Then, he dodged and hid behind a big tree, avoiding the attacks of the other shurikens. Qing Ming originally planned to continue to add additional attacks. But at this moment, the kunai that he had avoided before appeared, and thin steel wires that were unseen. Suddenly, his place was like a cage, covered by a large net made of steel wire. Moreover, this big net is still shrinking rapidly. If it were an ordinary person, he might be really defeated, but Qing Ming had Sharingan. Although the situation before was urgent, he still discovered the clues behind those kunai with the powerful insight of the Sharingan. Therefore, he had expected all this in front of him. Since this is the case, it is impossible to get hit. He saw him twisting like a gymnast, avoiding all the contacts of steel wires and drilling out before they closed. The long-prepared attack failed, and the person in the dark temporarily suspended the attack. Suddenly, the scene was silent. Qing Ming looked around, and after a long time, he spoke, "Come out. I want to kill me, just hiding in the dark is not enough." Tread. A subtle sound of footsteps came. Two figures walked out of the darkness. Qing Ming Shun looked at him and his brows frowned slightly. Although the two guys in front of him were wearing the forehead protection of Iwaken village and the uniform of Iwaken Zongnan, their temperament was completely different from that of other Iwaken Ninan. Iwahiko's angle. Single quote. Qing Ming thought came to his mind, but he quickly rejected it. No, even the Onbi ninja in Iwahidan village should not be so unique in temperament. In Qing Ming's perception, these two people were like dead people, without any anger as living people. If the Sharingan hadn't told him clearly that the two people in front of him were indeed living people, Qing Ming would have thought they were corpses controlled by others. So, what kind of ninja has this temperament? Single quote. Qing Ming thought in his heart. Suddenly, he thought of a man, Tuanzang. It's not that the other party has this kind of dead aura, but that the root organization ninja led by the other party has a similar temperament. I still remember that when the last game of the junior high school ninja exam was over, he sensed the malice that Danzo showed and glanced at the other party. It seems that the figure beside him has a similar temperament. But in order not to attract Danzang's attention, he didn't look much. After a quick glance, he looked away. Now it seems that he is wishful thinking. He doesn't want to cause trouble, which does not mean that trouble will not provoke him. Tanzang. Qing Ming gritted his teeth and spit out these two words. At the same time, Yu Guang glanced at the two of them, trying to see some clues from their expressions. However, it turns out that he was thinking too much. The expressions of the other party have not changed from beginning to end, even if they hear Danzang's name. But this made him even more convinced of the guess in his heart. Only by organizing these ninjas who eliminate themselves can they show such temperament. I just don't know why the other party is targeting him. Is it because he is a ninja of the Uchiha clan? Etc. Maybe it is really possible. Thinking of Danzo's prejudice against the Uchiha clan and his greed for the Sharingan, he might really find a way to solve him, the future star of the Uchiha clan. While thinking, two root ninjas attacked him. Chapter 90 Vampire Enchantment. Ding. Ding ding ding. A series of gold and iron intersections sounded. Qing Ming waved the short sword in his hand and blocked the two men's attacks for more than a dozen times in an instant, but there was no joy on his face. No, the pressure these two people put on him together was much greater than the two Iwa ninjas just now. The two Iwajins will also take into account their own safety during the battle. But the two people in front of them are different. Not only did they not care about their own safety, they even deliberately act as shields to create opportunities for their companions. Such a desperate fight really made Qing Ming a little busy. If it were normal, Qing Ming could have been injured and dealt with one person first, and then deal with another person. But it won't work now. Qing Ming glanced at Kuwu, who was shining with a dark purple light in his hands. If he was not wrong, there should be some kind of poison on it. In this case, Qing Ming naturally did not dare to let the other party hurt him easily. Therefore, we can only settle for the time being. Fortunately, Qing Ming's swordsmanship was more than one step ahead of the other party. After adapting to the rhythm of the two, he soon gained the upper hand again. In a short while, several scars appeared on the two of them. But how to say it? It is worthy of being a task tool trained by the root organization. Even if it is injured, its combat power will not be weakened at all. However, people are human beings after all. No matter how firm the will is, when the body can't bear it, its combat power will naturally decline. By then, it will be his chance. Therefore, Qing Ming was not in a hurry, just beat the opponent's blood volume slowly. However, as time went by, Qing Ming suddenly realized that something seemed wrong. Logically speaking, his intentions are very obvious, and it is impossible for the two people in front of him to discover them. With the style of root ninjas, it is impossible to accept chronic death. Therefore, they will most likely fight back, and Qing Ming is also ready to deal with their counterattack. But the fact is that they were as if they were surrendered, and they were completely unaware of the danger and were trying to spend time here with him. The blood was bleeding all over the floor, but I was not in a hurry. Etc. Blood. Qing Ming suddenly realized something and looked around. At some point, the surrounding ground was covered with blood, and the blood was connected together, forming a vague shape of a ceiling array. Qing Ming said intimately, "Not good," and then jumped backwards. But at this moment, a root ninja suddenly stepped forward and desperately dragged Qing Ming, while the other began to make seals quickly. The blood in his body gushed out from the wound, forming dozens of blood-colored patterns on the surface of his body. Then, these blood patterns spread down rapidly, and along his feet, the blood sprinkled on the nearby ground. Then, the blood squirmed into a regular sealing technique. The vampire barrier, get up. A low shout came from the mouth of the root ninja, covered with blood patterns. The next moment, 4 blood-colored barriers suddenly rose and finally closed at the top, forming a small barrier about 20 meters long and 10 meters high. At this time, the root ninja who was desperately blocking Qing Ming suddenly retreated, dragging his seriously injured body, and distanced him for a while. Qing Ming did not pursue, but instead faced the Sharingan and carefully observed the barrier around him. He heard the name the other party just shouted, the vampire barrier, so what about the Varna? Just as he was thinking this way, Qing Ming saw the seriously injured root ninja suddenly inserted Kyubi into his heart, and then pulled it out with an expressionless face. The next moment, blood gushed out, soaking his clothes and turning him into a man. Then, the surrounding barrier seemed to sense something, and it became a little lit up. Qing Ming looked at the root ninja who suddenly suited, and sensed that the other party's breath was falling rapidly, and was wondering why the other party wanted to do this. The other party's breath suddenly calmed down. Although it was not much different from a dying person, he did not really die. A bad premonition came to my mind. Qing Ming no longer hesitated. He flashed, came to the other party, swung his sword, and instantly cut half of the other party's neck. Affected by this severe blow, the ninja in front of him fell straight to the ground. However, before Qing Ming was happy, he found that the other party's vitality still existed. After looking carefully, I saw that the blood from the broken neck of the other party squirmed, which actually repaired the fatal injury. Is this the so-called vampire? Qing Ming was shocked and doubted, and swung 2 swords again. However, the result was the same as before, and the injuries caused by these 2 swords also recovered with the squirming blood. Even the speed is a little faster than just now. Is it immune to physical attacks? Qing Ming calmed his mind and thought about the truth. As soon as the thought moves, you must use ninjutsu to attack. But at this moment, a low growl that was not like a human voice came from the other party's mouth. Then, his body bounced up like lightning, and the kunai in his hand stabbed Qing Ming's chest. At the same time, another root ninja also threw several shurikens, blocking Qing Ming's retreat while aiming at his key points. The Sharingan in Qing Ming's eyes rotated rapidly, and instantly swung several swords to block all attacks. But this is just the beginning. In the following time, the root ninja in the distance continued to attack with the Blood Man as his shield. The Blood Man was killed by Qing Ming for many times, but he was still jumping around. Qing Ming wanted to use fire escape several times to test whether the opponent could be immune to ninjutsu attacks, but he never found a chance. I have to say that a meat shield that can be resurrected infinitely is too difficult to deal with. Only Qing Ming's swordsmanship is great, the other 2 cannot get close to him, otherwise he may have suffered a heavy blow. Qing Ming also tried to use illusion to control blood people. However, with the increase in the number of deaths, the other party had almost lost all his reason and just kept attacking him. Qing Ming's illusion fell on the other side, just like a mud bull entering the sea, and it did not play any role at all. Obviously, the root ninja came prepared. As a last resort, Qing Ming could only focus on another root ninja. Unfortunately, the other party was not skating and did not face him directly. Fortunately, with Sharingan assist, he finally predicted the other party's movement and found an opportunity. Swish, swish. 2 swords cut off the Blood Man's throat and right hand. Qing Ming, as if he had predicted the truth, avoided the kunai straight piercing of another root ninja, then rushed forward and approached the other party in an instant. The hypnotic ability of the Sharingan was activated, causing the other party to fall into a brief loss of mind. Taking this opportunity, Qing Ming waved the short sword in his hand. Thu. The sound of a sharp blade passing through the flesh and blood sounded. The ninja in front of him cut a half-foot-long scar into his chest with one sword. The severe pain awakened the lost root ninja. He was about to flash back, but Qing Ming didn't want to miss this opportunity. He flipped his left hand and a shuriken appeared in his palm. Swish. The shuriken shot out and pinned it to the other party's throat accurately. There is another update tonight. Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audiobook YouTube channel. Chapter 91 Willing to Reconcile. The throat was cut open, and the root ninja made a series of ho-ha-ho sounds. However, he was also doing his duty and was about to die, but he even forced himself to form a handprint and transformed himself into a Varna. The Blood Man he was entangled again, and Qing Ming saw this scene. It was too late to stop him. Fortunately, the situation is not too bad. After becoming a Var, although the opponent has an immortal body, he can completely clear his reason by killing it a few times. By then, even if 2 Varna go together, Qing Ming will not be afraid at all. The question now is, how to break this barrier. That's right, even if the root ninja on the opposite side had already destroyed, the barrier was not lifted. This made Qing Ming feel more speculation, perhaps this so-called var ghost barrier, and these two, var ghosts, are two sides of the same body. Only by killing them can this barrier be broken. This is not Qing Ming's guess, but when these two, var ghosts, were born, the blood-colored barriers around them were lit up a little. Follow this idea and think about whether the death of a var can weaken the barrier. He did what he thought of. Qing Ming first killed the newly born Varna several times. After he lost his mind, he inserted the short sword back to his waist. Then, he dodged away from the attacks of the two var ghosts, quickly completed the seal with both hands, opened his mouth, and spit out a large piece of flame. These flames differentiate and condense in the air, eventually forming hundreds of fist-sized fireballs. Go! Qing Ming shouted softly, controlled all the fire to divide them into two parts, and smashed them at the two var ghosts. The vampire didn't know how to dodge and was hit on the spot by the fireball. Accompanied by a series of explosions, the two vampires fell to the ground, and then a sizzling sound came from the surface of their skin. That is the movement of blood repairing the wound. Soon, the two vampires stood up again and continued to roar and attack Qing Ming, as if they had never been injured at all. But Qing Ming keenly discovered that the light of the surrounding barrier became dimmer. In other words, his guess is correct, killing the Varmire can indeed weaken the barrier. At the same time, it also proves that ninjutsu can hurt these Varmies. Yes, it is already outrageous to be immune to physical attacks. If you can still be immune to ninjutsu damage, you will have become famous even if it is a bit more expensive. How could it be like now? Qing Ming has never heard of it. However, through this incident, Qing Ming also had a deeper understanding of the ninja world and understood that some memories of his previous life could only be used as reference and could not be believed in them all. After all, that's just a corner of the real world. A mere root organization can produce such a strange barrier ninjutsu. Who knows what else is hidden in other ninja villages? It seems that we should be more cautious in our actions in the future. Single quote. He secretly warned himself that Qing Ming no longer saved chakra, and used 3 fire escape ninja techniques in turn, which soon weakened the barrier so much that it was almost invisible. Before Qing Ming flashed to a barrier, he observed for a moment, then made a seal again, and used his powerful ninjutsu, fire escape how fireball technique, the most powerful single body attack. A fireball was spit out by him, then expanded rapidly, and finally hit the barrier. Click. A crack appeared on the barrier. Next is the second and third. Soon, the barrier in front of me was covered with dense cracks. In the end, with an indefinite sound of glass breaking, the entire barrier turned into starry light and disappeared into the air. After breathing the fresh air again, Qing Ming felt relieved. But at this moment, more than 10 kuns suddenly flew out of the forest and rushed towards Qing Ming's body. Seeing this scene, Qing Ming's pupils shrank slightly, he instantly drew out his short sword, waved it, and knocked away all the coming kuwu. Then, his body flashed and ran towards one side. However, before he could run far, a Iwaruan was blocked from his way ahead. At the same time, figures appeared faintly in the rear and on both sides. Are you really surrounded? Seeing these people, Qing Ming murmured. As early as the 2 root ninjas opened the vampire enchantment, Qing Ming guessed that he might be surrounded by Iwa ninjas. After all, such a special barrier is enough to attract attention even if the coverage is not large. For this reason, he just used his ninjutsu regardless of his consumption and broke the barrier at the fastest speed in order to avoid being surrounded by the Iwa ninja. Unfortunately, it's still one step late. Since that's the case, you can only fight out. Single quote. Making up his mind, Qing Ming no longer hesitated, and immediately rushed towards the iron ninja in front of him with his sword. Ding ding dang dang. Fierce fighting sounded in the forest. Qing Ming fought while heading deeper into the dense forest. 2 hours later. The second meeting will be the point. Qing Ming finally met his teammate. According to the plan, after the blocking task is completed, there are 2 scheduled meetings and locations. However, when he tried his best to get rid of the pursuit of the Iron Ninja and arrived at the first meeting and point, except for the corpses of the 2 Iron Ninjas, there were only some traces of fighting at the scene. As for teammates, I didn't see any of them. As a last resort, he had to continue moving forward. Unfortunately, he encountered another team of Iwa Ninja on the way. There were 4 people on the other side, led by a special Shang Ninja. In order to get rid of them, Qing Ming was stabbed on the side of his waist. Fortunately, he has the healing technique, and this injury is not in the way. After that, after nearly an hour of rushing, he finally arrived at the second meeting and finally met his teammates. However, before he could get closer, a kunai shot over. Qing Ming's expression remained unchanged, quietly stopped, and inserted it into the place about half a meter in front of him without warning. Code code. A voice came from the front. Qing Ming frowned slightly and asked directly, what code? However, when he heard his inquiry, the man and the few people next to him were relieved, and then said, it's his own person. Come here. Qing Ming hesitated for a moment, and then walked over. As he approached, the person who asked the question just now explained, Qing Ming, don't mind. At the first meeting, someone tried to get in, so he temporarily arranged this test. Hearing the other party's explanation, Qing Ming finally knew how the first battle traces came from, and also understood the intention of the other party's inquiry of the secret code. They were in a hurry this time and there was no secret code to be reconciled. But outsiders don't know. Therefore, when asked, hesitate or answer some irrelevant content, there must be a problem. And people like Qing Ming will ask directly. In this way, we will initially distinguish the enemy and us. After that, it will be easier to verify. After talking to each other for a few words, after confirming that their identity was correct, Qing Ming came straight to Uchiha Shisui. Chapter 92 Communication. Qing Ming, is there anything wrong? Seeing Qing Ming walking straight towards him, he seemed to have something to say. Uchiha Shisui immediately stood up and asked. Qing Ming nodded, pointed not far away and said, this is the place. Seeing Qing Ming performing this way, Uchiha Shimizu knew that what he was going to say was definitely not simple, otherwise he would not have avoided the other people. After thinking about it, he did not refuse and followed Qing Ming. Seeing this, the other people did not over-exploration. After all, each of them has their own secrets. Besides, both of them are from the Uchiha clan. Maybe they have to discuss some things about the Sharingan. If you are rashly exploring, it is very likely that they will cause trouble. However, they still kept a little focused and paid attention to this side. After stopping by a big tree, Qing Ming turned around and looked at Uchiha Shimizu and asked with a serious expression, did you encounter any special situations during the battle before? Special situation. Uchiha Shimizu felt aroused when she heard this, but she still pretended to be puzzled and asked, what's the special situation? Qing Ming saw the other party's unnatural moment in his eyes and immediately understood that the other party must have been attacked by the root ninja. However, although he noticed the abnormality, he chose to conceal it temporarily without understanding the reason inside. Think about it, since Danzo has taken action against him, there is no reason to let Uchiha Shimizu, the Uchiha ninja with greater potential. Unfortunately, the other party not only underestimated his strength, but also underestimated Uchiha Shimizu's combat power. He shook his head secretly. Qing Ming closed his thoughts and did not keep it a secret. He asked directly, is someone attacking you too? Also, Uchiha Shimizu noticed Qing Ming's words, thought for a while, and asked, are you attacked too? When you say this, you basically admit Qing Ming's previous guess. After learning about this, Qing Ming didn't talk nonsense and quickly told his previous experience, including the extremely strange vampire barrier. After saying that, he looked at Uchiha Shimizu and asked again, where is the one? Uchiha Shimizu hesitated for a moment and said, I haven't encountered the vampire barrier, but there are indeed two people who have taken action against me, just like yours, they are equally brave and fearless. Is that true? Qing Ming pondered for a moment, then continued to ask, what about other things? What's more special? For example, temperament or something? Hearing Qing Ming say the word, temperament, Uchiha Shisui finally confirmed that Qing Ming was also attacked. Nothing else, these people have two unique temperaments, and Qing Ming's ability to ask this means that he also discovered this. At the same time, it also indirectly proves that the enemies the two face are likely to be in the same group. All kinds of thoughts flashed through my mind, and Uchiha Shimizu replied seriously, indeed, their temperament is very special, and they always give me a lifeless feeling. It's them indeed. Qing Ming pretended that his guess was confirmed and murmured, attracting Uchiha Shimizu to ask. Sure enough, when he heard his words, Uchiha Shimizu hurriedly asked, what are they? Qing Ming, do you know the identities of those people? Hearing the other party's inquiry, Qing Ming pretended to be hesitant, and after a moment of silence, he said, if I'm not mistaken, those people should be root ninjas. Root. Uchiha Shimizu seemed to have heard this name for the first time and asked with confusion, what is that? The training department of Konoha Anbu. Qing Ming replied. What? Hearing this answer, Uchiha Shimizu was so shocked that her voice became louder, which immediately attracted the attention of several people in the distance. Uchiha Shimizu suppressed the vibration in her heart and waved her hand to the few people, indicating that it was okay here. After they all looked away, they asked in disbelief, why did the Anbi ninja attack us? Is it the third generation of adults? Maybe. Although he claimed to be a magnificent person, Danzo would not have done so many evil things without his indulgence. So, in Qing Ming's opinion, Sarutobi Hinata must bear at least half of the blame for Danzo. And he himself. Memory shook her head when he thought about the future experience of Naruto Uzumaki and the Hinata who was forced to commit suicide by the Hinata clan. In any case, Qing Ming couldn't let Uchiha Shisui completely fall to the other side. That's why these ambiguous words come into being. Of course, Qing Ming did not forget to shake out the Duanzang. He only heard him say this, the direct leader of Nen is Shimura Danzo, and the order may be issued by the other party bypassing Naruto. Shimura Danzo. Uchiha Shimizu heard this strange name and said directly, who is that? The senior elder of the village, the third generation of Naruto. Qing Ming replied. Hearing this, Uchiha Shimizu fell into silence, and after a while, he asked again, then why did they attack us? Haha. Qing Ming chuckled twice when he heard this, without saying anything, but just pointed to his own eyes. Sharingan. Seeing Qing Ming's actions, Uchiha Shisui murmured. Seeing that he was stunned in trance, Qing Ming did not intend to continue the conversation. Finally, he said in a warning tone, anyway, be careful in the future. There are many people staring at these eyes. After saying that, he walked towards several Konoha ninjas not far away. Etc. At this moment, Uchiha Shisui suddenly called him and asked with a serious expression, how did you know these? Qing Ming just smiled and did not answer his question. To be honest, Qing Ming didn't know how to answer. Since this is the case, it is better to let the other party imagine. Anyway, as long as the other party looks down in this direction, you will eventually find that what he said is true. At that time, it doesn't matter how he himself knows it. Yes, Qing Ming did not expect Uchiha Shimizu to believe his words immediately. The reason why he told the other party this was just to bury a nail of distrust in his heart. In this way, in the future, he will be more careful whether he deals with the senior management of the village or meets with Duanzang. If Danzo still takes away the Sharingan, then it can only be said that the other party deserves it. However, Qing Ming probably won't be able to survive that day. Just based on what the other party did today, he would not give the other party this opportunity. Qing Ming has always been a clear distinction between grudges and grudges. Since the other party chooses to attack him, don't blame him for being rude. Thinking of this in my heart, Qing Ming returned to the crowd. After waiting for about an hour, no one came over during this period. Tanikawa Maki announced the termination of the mission, and then led everyone to chase the large army. At this point, the blocking war officially ended. 1 Wano Nin was dispatched on Konoha, 2 Wano Nin and 8 Wano Nin, a total of 11 people. In the end, 6 survived, 1 Wano Nin was killed, plus 4 Wano Nin, with a death rate of 45%, which was nearly half. Fortunately, Qing Ming survived again. Chapter 93 Promotion. A few days later. Koi. Gen's headquarters base. Inside the Tuanzang office. A root ninja knelt on one knee and said, Sir, the news has been confirmed. 2 days ago, Uchiha Aoi and Uchiha Shimizu had arrived at the frontline camp, and the mission of the Chirp Rain team failed. As he said that, he handed over a mission report to Danzang. Danzo took the report, glanced quickly, then threw it on the ground, scolding, waste. What a bunch of waste. In order for the smooth progress of this mission, he used a long-lost spy. Even, the layout started half a month in advance, leaking the information of some support teams in the village to Yenshi village in exchange for the other party's trust. Unexpectedly, at a critical moment, his subordinates actually dropped the chain. There are those group of rock ninjas, they are really useless. They can't even catch such a good opportunity. They are really useless. Single quote. The more I thought about it, the more angry Danzo became, and finally he thrashed the table hard. Bang! A loud noise came from the front. The root ninja still maintained a half-kneeling posture without any reaction. It was not until Danzo returned to his calm that he said, Sir, should you continue to send someone to assassinate? Hearing this, Duanzang thought for a long time and finally said, forget it, let's not care about them for the time being. Recently, Union Village is gathering troops, and it seems that there is something big. Your top priority now is to keep a close eye on them. Yes, sir. The root ninja below responded. Qing Ming didn't know that he had escaped a crisis without realizing it. When Danzo turned his gaze to him again, he was no longer the Chunin who could just send a few people to solve it. Time flies and it is early September. It has been 20 days since he left the village, and it has been half a month since he arrived at the front line. In the past half month, Qing Ming performed a patrol mission and a reinforcement mission, and basically did not encounter too much danger. Therefore, practice has never been lost. After these days of hard practice, several of his skills have been greatly improved. The first is the instant body technique, whose level is directly upgraded from LV3 871,000 to LV4 0/0, which is the perfect state. At this time, if he wants to use the instant body technique, he just needs to simply make a way seal. Moreover, after the operation, the limit speed is about 30% faster than when LV3. In this case, he launched a surprise attack on an ordinary Zongnan. Unless the other party is particularly vigilant, he will not be able to react at all. In other words, he now has the ability to kill some Zongnan in seconds. The second is the illusion Sharingan. After these days of cultivation, its level has also been raised from LV2 425 to LV3 121,000. Just as he has increased from LV1 to LV2, this time the upgrade is still improving the speed of the casting and the power of the illusion. This gives Qing Ming more opportunities to display it in battle, which is a big improvement. There are also Koha Flow Sword Technique and Uchiha Flow Sword Technique. Because I couldn't practice during the few days of travel, the progress was a little slower than expected. Nevertheless, they also reached the brink of promotion, with the former reaching LV4 1910-2000 and the latter being LV4 1750-2000. Qing Ming predicts that they will be able to upgrade in about a week. At that time, you can try to combine these two sword techniques. In addition, their upgrades are likely to drive his physical constitution attributes to improve. And this will undoubtedly increase the amount of chakra he can use every day. In this way, he can use more chakra to practice the spirit of heart reflection, and then promote the Sharingan to accelerate its evolution. When it comes to the evolution of the Sharingan, we have to mention the chakra absorption technique. After half a month of resource tilt, his level has been from LV1 1/200th to LV2 105 500ths. At this time, use it again, and you can draw 200 chakras from the enemy every second, and convert 60% of them into his chakra. Using this technique, in the past half month, he has drawn 7 enemy chakras in 2 missions, and obtained nearly 8,000 chakras in total. These chakras were used by him in the practice of spiritual of heart reflection, and he obtained 48 points of proficiency, which increased the evolution of Sharingan by an additional 16 points. However, this speed is still too slow. Qing Ming planned to wait until the two sword techniques were merged, and then find an opportunity to work alone to obtain more chakra, thereby maximizing the evolution of Sharingan. Qing Ming, what are you thinking? You're leaving. The call of the teammates awakens Qing Ming from his loss of consciousness. He replied perfunctorily, "It's nothing," and then followed the team to the west of the base camp. Next, he will carry out a week-long patrol mission to prevent the infiltration of the Sand Ninja squad. That's right, it's Sand Ninja. The Rain country is now basically divided into 4 pieces. In addition to the Yuhang village, which is huddled in the central area, Konoha occupies a large area to the south, the territory of Iwakig village to the northeast, and the Sand Ninja to the west. Qing Ming did not forget his plan to seize the secret technique of puppets and improve the level of chakra control. After returning to the battlefield this time, he applied. Now, after layers of approval, I finally changed my defense to the west of the base camp. Next, his mission will be concentrated here. In this way, the chances of obtaining the puppet secret technique will be greatly increased. However, before this, you still have to get familiar with your opponent. After all, he was fighting against Iwa Ninja in the past few months. Now that I change it, I naturally have to be familiar with the fighting style of the Sagnan. Because each ninja village has a different geographical environment and different leaders' choices, there are huge gaps in the combat methods, combat habits, and even chakra attributes. Just like Iwa Hidden Village, because Onoki opened the door to the ninja school and set the admission standards and graduation requirements very low, the number of Iwahiduns is almost the largest among the 5 major ninja villages. But equally, the average combat power of Iwa Ninja is the second most among the 5 major ninja villages. In this way, if you want to fully utilize their value, you must work together in a group of people. Therefore, the Iwajins are better at group combat. On the contrary, Sand Village cannot cultivate so many ninjas because it is located in a desert and lacks resources. Therefore, the number of Sand Ninja is almost the smallest among the 5 major ninja villages. But correspondingly, fewer people also mean more concentrated resources, so most of the ninjas cultivated by Sagi village are elite. Compared with group combat, they are better at fighting alone. To deal with this different type of ninja, we naturally need to adopt different strategies. And this is what Qing Ming calls familiar with his opponent. Time passes by minute by minute. It's getting dark. Qing Ming and others finally arrived at the target location. After completing the handover with the ninjas stationed here, they officially began their patrol mission. Chapter 94 Discovery. In a blink of an eye, 3 days have passed. Qing Ming neither encountered enemies nor dangers. He was not in a routine patrol every day, but was just trying to practice. The 2 sword techniques he was worried about were progressing quite well, and their proficiency increased a lot, especially the koi flow sword technique, which had almost reached a perfect state. Now, Qing Ming just wants to complete the task quickly and then go back to continue his liver progress. However, things often do not follow people's subjective wishes. Just when Qing Ming thought today would be the same as before the 3 days, he suddenly received a signal from a subordinate to ask for help. That's right, it's subordinates. Since he was promoted to Zongnan, he has no longer been an optional cannon fodder. In addition, the Uchiha clan's status bonus will hold a certain position almost every mission. Just like this time, he was the captain of one of the patrol teams, with 3 Zongnan under his command, and one of them sent the signal. By the time he and the other 2 arrived, the man was already dead. Suddenly, the 3 of them were all excited and looked around with vigilance. Qing Ming's Sharingan activated his full strength, always paying attention to the surroundings. Not for being so nervous, it is really the enemy's strength that cannot be underestimated. From the time they find the signal to the time they come over, it will not exceed 1 minute at most. And it will not be easy to kill someone in such a short time. Therefore, they must be cautious. After a while, Qing Ming raised his right hand to signal that the surrounding area was temporarily safe. At this time, the other two men let go of their guard. Qing Ming directly ordered, Shi Guang, check the body. Yes, Captain. Hearing this, a Konoha ninja stepped forward and began to carefully examine the corpse on the ground. After a while, he stood up and said with a serious expression, Captain, the one who killed Karaki is probably the puppet master of Sakai village. Puppet master. Qing Ming immediately became interested and signaled him to continue speaking. Seeing this, Tara Hiroshi immediately explained, Captain, the wound on Karaki's body is very flat. Although people can do it, there is no need. Of course Qing Ming knew why it was not necessary. Because that is simply thankless. If you can kill someone with one knife, who will waste more effort and make the wound become like this? Qing Ming nodded, signaling himself to understand and let the other party continue to speak. Unlike him who was a newcomer, Tara Hiroshi has performed several missions here and has dealt with Saw Ninja more than once. In terms of their understanding, he must be more profound than his newcomer. Since this is the case, Qing Ming will naturally not act arbitrarily. After Qing Ming's instructions, Si Guang continued, this kind of injury is usually only caused by the puppets from Sand Village, and you can see here, Captain. As he said, Shi Guang pointed to the flesh on both sides of the wound of the corpse, and the signs of blackening could be seen. Nagikuno. There are toxins spreading near these wounds, and the puppet masters in Sand Village like to temper poisoning the puppets' weapons. In addition, there are no traces of others nearby. So, I think the enemy is most likely a puppet master who is ambushed in the dark and controls the puppet to attack Karaki passing by. Quote. After listening to Si Guang's analysis, Qing Ming nodded, which was considered to be his recognition of his statement. After thinking for a while, he ordered, Shi Guang, continue to search the outside world. Although the other party can control the puppet, he should not hide too far. Please search carefully to see if he can find his trace. Okay, Captain. After answering, Si Guang went to work hard. Then, Qing Ming looked at another subordinate who had never spoken and said, Yang, immediately notify several nearby teams to surround them from the periphery, and be sure not to let the enemy escape. When Sheng Zhaoyang heard Qing Ming's words, he didn't say much, but just nodded silently. Then, he bit his right thumb and let the blood stay in his palm. Then he raised his hands and quickly formed the 5 seals of Haishuyu Shen Wei, and used the psychic technique. Bang! As a cloud of chakra smoke dissipated, a psychic beast that looked like a parrot was summoned by him. Oh, Yangi, what are you doing with me again this time? I warn you, don't want me to run away for nothing this time, there is no best one. As soon as the parrot appeared, it started chattering continuously until it saw Qing Ming's scarlet Sharingan pair, and then stopped talking. Yangachi Kamiho took the opportunity to tell the other party about the situation here and then asked him to pass the information to several nearby teams. As if afraid of making mistakes, Shengzhao Yangachi repeated it several times without getting tired of it. However, the parrot just waved its wings impatiently and said, okay, stop talking, I remember it all. After saying that, it glanced at Qing Ming weakly, then flapped its wings and flew into the sky. Looking at the parrot that was quickly away, Qing Ming couldn't help but wonder whether he should have a psychic beast. However, the ordinary psychic beast seems to be useless to him, and the powerful ones are not something he can covet now. Thinking of the situation where the psychic beast ran away when it encountered danger, Qing Ming felt that it would be convenient to wait for the evolution of the Sharingan to improve and use illusion to control one. At critical moments, you can also be used as a meat shield. Just as Qing Ming was thinking about everything, the voice of Temple Light came again. Captain, I've discovered it. Hearing this, Qing Ming instantly appeared beside Shi Guang. Looking at Qing Ming who suddenly appeared, Se Guang said in his heart, Captain's instant body technique is still so fast. What are you finding? Qing Ming, no matter what Si Guang was thinking, he immediately started asking after coming over. Hearing Qing Ming's inquiry, Shi Guang calmed down and pointed to the grass in front of him, saying, Captain, this is a trace of someone who has been staying for a long time. Qing Ming looked in the direction of his finger and saw some traces of flowers and plants being pressed over, and 2 shallow footprints were seen below. Thanks to the cloudy and rainy weather in the rain country, the flowers, plants, trees and soil in the forest are relatively wet, which has completely preserved such traces. But, Qing Ming looked back and found that this place was nearly 20 meters away from the place where Karaki died, and there was no obvious trace in the middle. Indicate that the distance between the enemy's puppet is at least more than 20 meters. And being able to flexibly control the puppet at such a long distance and kill Karaki, the Chunanin, in a short time, shows its strength. Unable to help, Qing Ming was once again excited. However, he did not give up. Not to mention as a member of the patrol team, his duty is to prevent the enemy from infiltration towards the headquarters. The identity of the opponent's puppet master alone is worthy of his pursuit. Qing Ming opened the panel and glanced at LV3, 531,000s, chakra control, thinking that it would be a happy event if he could get the puppet's secret technique in advance. Originally, he planned to do it slowly. But I never thought that after changing the defense, the first sand ninja I met was actually a puppet master, and it seemed that his level was not low. Then he naturally has to seize the opportunity. Captain, there is still here. Just as Qing Ming was pondering, the voice of the temple light came again. Qing Ming walked over quickly and found new traces. After careful identification, you can confirm that it was left by the person who left just now. Since this was the case, Qing Ming no longer hesitated and immediately ordered Tera Hiroshi and Katsujo Yoichi to continue searching forward. Opening parenthesis. Chapter 95 Instant Kill. Stop. In the forest, Shi Guang and Yangachi Kawatsu were moving quickly when they suddenly heard Qing Ming's warning sound and stopped immediately. Qing Ming looked around, and the Sharingan looked even more and more scarlet. Swish 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 swish. Suddenly, a slight sound of breaking through the air came. Qing Ming's ears moved slightly, and he suddenly turned his head and looked into the dense forest in front of his right. The next moment, there were dense tiny steel needles flying out of the forest. The speed was so fast that it was not something that human power could send out. Careful! Qing Ming shouted softly and pulled out the short sword. The Sharingan in his pupils rotated rapidly, and he could see the flying needle clearly. Ding ding ding. A series of crisp metal collisions sounded, and Qing Ming waved the short sword in his hand and blocked all the flying needles in front of him. Even Qing Ming couldn't bear such extreme operations. He gasped slightly, and the light of the Sharingan seemed to be a little dimmed. Pa, pa, pa. At this moment, a burst of applause went from far to near. Immediately afterwards, a slightly joking voice sounded. It is worthy of being the famous Sharingan. It is really enviable to block such an attack. Qing Ming Shun looked at him and saw a giant spider 2 meters long walking out carrying a young sand ninja of 15 or 16 years old. Qing Ming's eyes flashed over the young Sandan, swept the spider below, and finally turned his eyes back to the Sandan. He said lightly, since you have heard of the name of Sharingan, you should know that this simple trick can't deceive my eyes. Chenny couldn't help but look stuck when he heard this, and the joking expression on his face disappeared without a trace, and he said quietly, what do you mean? Ha ha. Qing Ming chuckled twice, ignored the other party, but said directly to Tetsuhiko and Yoichi Kawaho behind him, be careful, these two are puppets. That's right, whether it is the giant spider in front of you or the young Sandnin on the spider's back, they are all puppet creations. The reason why the opponent appears like this is probably to confuse them. Most people may instinctively think that the person above is a puppet when they see this combination. But Qing Ming was different. He had a Sharingan and could tell at a glance that there was no chakra in that guy's body. In this way, it is naturally impossible to be a real person. What? Times 2. At this time, Tera Hiroshi and Katsujo Yoichi were still shocked by what Qing Ming said. They looked up and down Chenny, and they all looked at them as real people. However, after careful sensing, you can indeed detect some strange things, such as the aura of a living person is too weak. After being looked at by someone as goods, Chenny could no longer maintain his master's demeanor and immediately wanted to control the puppet to launch an attack. But someone is faster than him. Fire Escape Phoenix Immortal Fire Art. Qing Ming completed the seal at a speed that was difficult to distinguish with his naked eyes. He opened his mouth and spit out a large piece of flames. These flames quickly differentiated and condensed, turning into hundreds of small fireballs. Immediately afterwards, these fire were divided into several strands according to Qing Ming's will, and hit the 8 legs of the giant spider puppet and Chenny on it. However, Qing Ming's movements were fast, and Chenny's reactions were not slow either. After seeing the coming fireball, he controlled the spider puppet to dodge to the side. What should I say? It is worthy of being a thing with 8 legs, and it runs fast. Even though Qing Ming used the most skilled ninjutsu and had Sharingan assisted it, most of the fire were still lost. And the fire that hit didn't hit the key points, and the damage caused was extremely limited. Seeing this, Qing Ming wanted to greet Shi Guang and Katsuyo to go there together. Unexpectedly, dozens of kunai suddenly shot in the surrounding forest. After they escaped, they saw 3 Saiyan Zongnan walking out of the forest and surrounded them in the center with the spider puppet. Team leader. Shi Guang spoke carefully. Qing Ming knew what he wanted to ask, glanced at him and replied, it's all real people. After saying that, he gestured to the 2 of them. Before the 2 of them could react, they used the momentum body technique, and came to a Sakai Zongnan in an instant. They swung the short sword in their hand and slashed the other party's neck. If it were an ordinary Zongnan, facing Qing Ming's sudden attack, he would not be instantly injured on the spot, at least he would be seriously injured. But the Sakai Zongnan reacted at the critical moment, leaned back slightly, avoiding this fatal blow. Then, he launched a counterattack without hesitation, and the kunai in his hand pierced out directly, hitting Qing Ming's heart. Unfortunately, all this was clearly seen by Qing Ming with Sharingan. Even without waiting for the other party to raise his arm, Qing Ming predicted the other party's movements just by seeing the bulge of muscles on the other party's arm. Therefore, simply turning sideways avoids the opponent's counterattack. Not only that, because of the early measurement, Qing Ming gave the opportunity to use the illusion art Sharingan while dodging. The other party failed to react and was hit on the spot, falling into a brief loss of consciousness. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Qing Ming swung his short sword and instantly cut the other party's throat. All this seems long, but it actually happened in an instant. By the time the others reacted, Qing Ming had already solved the opponent. Sand. Seeing this scene, a Sakai Zongren spoke out in pain, as if he had some close relationship with the other party. But Qing Ming didn't care about these things. He made the unfa seal again, and the instant body technique was activated instantly, and at an extremely fast speed, he came to the sound of the sand ninja. However, with the lesson I just learned, the other party was already full of vigilance. Although Qing Ming's instant body technique is fast, it is far from teleportation. Therefore, when he came to him and swung his short sword, the other party had already raised the kunai. Ding! Cuba and the dagger made a crisp metal collision sound. And this sound was like a switch, awakening everyone present. Immediately, everyone took action. First of all, Tara Hiroshi and Katsujo Yoichi. Without saying a word, the two of them rushed towards the giant spider puppet according to Qing Ming's instructions before taking action. Qing Ming's gesture before meant that it was very simple, that was, they wanted them to hold the other party's puppet master first. But everything happened so quickly just now that Qing Ming had already started to take action before the two of them could react. Not to mention them, even Qian Yi, not far away, did not expect Qing Ming to be so decisive and so strong. In just a blink of an eye, he killed one of his subordinates, which was really amazing. He had only heard that Sharingan was very powerful, but he had never fought with the ninjas of the Uchiha clan. Now it seems that the rumors are true. In fact, the other party overestimated the effectiveness of the Sharingan, and at least overestimated the effectiveness of the double magma Sharingan. Not every Uchiha ninja who has opened the double magma Sharingan can practice the instant body technique to this level during the Chunin period, and have such rich combat experience as he has. If you can't do these two things, even if you have a pair of equine jade Sharingans, it will be difficult to reproduce his actions just now. Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audiobook YouTube channel. Chapter 96 Escape. Ding. One attack was blocked, Qing Ming waved his sword to attack again, and the sand ninja in front of him blocked for the second time. Qing Ming continued to attack, and the sand ninja continued to block. For a time, there was a constant sound of gold and iron fighting in the field, and Qing Ming's attack was as fast and fierce as a storm. The sand ninja attacked by him was like a lonely boat in the sea, struggling in the storm, and at any time there was danger of overturning. Seeing that his teammate was in danger, another Sakai Zongan immediately rushed to support him. However, even facing the two, Qing Ming was still not panicked. The exquisite, koi flow sword technique made him gain the upper hand again in just a moment. When the two opponents gradually became familiar with his offensive rhythm, Qing Ming suddenly changed his move. The Sharingan's hypnosis ability is activated with all his strength, and his moves have also changed from Koba flow sword technique to the more compatible Uchiha flow sword technique. Immediately, a man was hit, and a short sword in Qing Ming's hand slashed, leaving a deep bone-visible scar on the man's left arm. It's not that Qing Ming didn't want to aim at the opponent's vitals, but was blocked by another person during the attack, which only hurt the opponent's arm. Despite this, the injury is also extremely serious. After suffering from this severe injury, the Sagitan immediately let out a cry of pain, and the person woke up from hypnosis, and then quickly retreated. But he wanted to retreat, but Qing Ming refused. He forced the Sandan to retreat with a sword. He rushed forward and instantly came to the retreating Sandan. The short swords in his hand were swung one after another, and in the blink of an eye, several scars of varying depths were left on the other party's body. Seeing this, another Sorin hurriedly stepped forward to rescue the siege. Feeling the kuwu from the Sha ninja behind, Qing Ming flashed and avoided the attack. Then, he jumped back a few times, slightly widened the distance, and raised his hands at the same time, and completed the seal at an extremely fast speed without waiting for the two sand ninjas to make any moves. Then, he opened his mouth and spit out a large piece of flames. The flames differentiated and condensed, forming hundreds of fireballs, and they all hit the two Sandian Zongnan. It is ninjutsu, Fire Escape Phoenix Immortal Fire Technique. Two Sakai Zongren were caught off guard. Although they tried their best to dodge, they were still hit by several fireballs. The fireball exploded, causing the two of them to suffer severe damage. Seeing this, Qing Ming was about to step forward and finish the attack. But at this moment, a scream suddenly came from not far away. Qing Ming Shun looked at the sound of the temple light that was going to block the Shayan puppet master. The giant pliers stretched out from the mouth of the giant spider puppet was cut off. The upper and lower body were separated, and blood and internal organs were flowing all over the ground, and they were wailing in pain. Even though Qing Ming was used to life and death, he was shocked by the scene in front of him. Fortunately, Siguang did not suffer much pain. In just a moment, he completely lost his life. At the same time, the situation on Yangachi Katsujo is not optimistic. His opponent is that human-shaped puppet. Although the other party abandoned many mechanisms and structures for a higher degree of imitation, the unique characteristics of the puppets not afraid of death and threat still made Shang Tiaoyang suffer all the hardships. Qing Ming secretly calculated the combat power of both sides. The remaining two people on their side still maintained their complete combat power, and Yang Yi Shangjiao could have about 70% to 80%. Although there are 3 people on the Sajiko side, 2 of them have been severely damaged by him, so it would be no problem for Yang Yang to solve them. Perhaps the plan can begin. As soon as he thought of this, Qing Ming used the momentary body technique, and came to Shang Tiaoyang, and blocked the human-shaped puppet attack for him. Then, he said without looking back, "Leave it to me here, you can deal with those 2. Hearing this, Shang Jiaoyang glanced at the 2 Sakai Zongnan who were struggling to get up, and said with a rare slightest voice, "Captain, be careful." Qing Ming responded and rushed towards the human-shaped puppet. But before he could get closer, the human-shaped puppet suddenly opened its mouth, and then hundreds of steel needles flew out from it. Although these flying needles ejected by the mechanism lack changes, their speed is not comparable to that of human power. Fortunately, Qing Ming has a Sharingan and can see the flight trajectory of these steel needles clearly. Therefore, hiding is not a problem. Chenny didn't believe in evil, so he controlled the human puppet again and shot several waves of steel needles, but Qing Ming avoided them one by one. Not only that, Qing Ming also took the opportunity to rush into it, and the short sword in his hand pierced out, as if he was going to fight this human-shaped puppet in close combat. Seeing this scene, Qian Yi, who was hiding in the dark, immediately laughed, "Fight with the puppet, haha, it's true." However, before he finished speaking, Qing Ming's sword tip penetrated the protective layer of the human-shaped puppet and accurately inserted it into the thin crack at his left shoulder joint. Chalk. Accompanied by the sound of gears, the left shoulder of the human-shaped puppet suddenly fell to the ground. At this moment, he could no longer laugh. On the contrary, Qing Ming showed a smile on his face. When he was planning to seize the secret technique of puppet, he was thinking about how to deal with the puppet master. In traditional concepts, when dealing with puppet masters, you need to avoid head-on battles with their puppets as much as possible, and then find a way to search for the puppet master himself, and then complete the beheading. But Qing Ming felt that this method was too passive. Although puppets are not afraid of death or threats, they are not invincible. They also have weaknesses, such as the connections of various components. It may be difficult for ordinary people to target these places in fierce battles, but Qing Ming is different. Not only did he have the double magma Sharingan, he had amazing observation skills, but he also practiced advanced swordsmanship to a nearly perfect level, which was able to achieve accurate strikes. In this way, it is not difficult to deal with these ordinary mechanical puppets. As long as he insists on dismantling these puppets, no matter how much the puppet master hidden behind the scenes, he will eventually be exposed. This is his plan, turn passive into initiative. As long as he chases the puppet and fights, he can sooner or later find the puppet master hidden in the dark. By then, without the puppet, the other party will be controlled by him at will. If the other party does not want to end up in such a situation, there are only 2 choices. One is to kill him before he removes the puppet, and the other is to escape immediately. Chenny first chose the former, but when Qing Ming avoided the 2 puppets' joint attacks, he successively removed the human-shaped puppet's hand and foot and the spider puppet's 3 legs. He chose the latter very carefully. Escape. But will Qing Ming let him escape? The answer is obviously no. The other party's combat experience is average, and the various actions before appearing, Qing Ming feels that the other party's real age should be small, and it is also a flower in a greenhouse. Referring to the appearance of the human-shaped puppet at the age of 15 or 16, Qing Ming has reason to suspect that it was created according to him. In this way, as long as you catch the other party and torture it severely, you will likely be able to obtain the puppet's secret technique. How could Qing Ming miss such an opportunity? Looking at the spider puppet and human-shaped puppet that suddenly retreated, Qing Ming followed immediately without any hesitation. In the blink of an eye, 1 person and 2 puppets disappeared from everyone's sight. Chapter 97 Explosion. Okay, let's just stop here. In the forest, Qian Yi, who was running away, suddenly heard this sentence. His expression changed suddenly, stopped, and his eyes stared at the figure suddenly appeared in front of him. This person is nothing else, it is Qing Ming. It's you. You've discovered me long ago. Looking at this familiar face and the familiar eyes, Qian Yi gritted his teeth. Haha. Hearing this, Qing Ming chuckled twice and said, if you can't find your traces like this, it will be a waste of my eyes. Hiding is not moving and hiding whereabouts and not being discovered when moving or not moving are 2 different concepts. Qing Ming only chased behind for a while, and then through the powerful insight of Sharingan, he discovered the traces left by Chenny's original body. Just to keep the battlefield as far away as possible from its previous position, this was not immediately blocked. Now, the time is almost over. If you delay any further, maybe several other teams will gather around and the battle must be resolved as soon as possible. In addition, there is another reason to choose the battlefield here, that is, there is a hidden place nearby for hiding. It was an underground space, which seemed to be opened by someone in the last Ninja World War with Earth Escape Ninja. Qing Ming also accidentally discovered it while patrolling 2 days ago. I didn't take it seriously, but now I can be used to imprison this puppet master. However, before this, you still have to catch the other party first. As soon as he thought of this, Qing Ming threw out several shurikens. Snort. Seeing this, Chenny did not dodge, snorted coldly, hooked his fingers slightly, and 2 black shadows rushed out of the forest behind, blocking straight in front of him. This black shadow is not something else, it is the spider puppet with 3 legs and the human-shaped puppet with only the head, torso and 1 leg left. Dong 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 dong. The shuriken hit the puppet and made a series of dull sounds, failing to cause any damage to the puppet. Immediately afterwards, Chenny's counterattack arrived. He was able to move his fingers in a row, controlling the spider puppet to release a large number of hidden weapons, and at the same time, he controlled the human puppet to fight Qing Ming in close combat, trying to interfere with his movements. But Qing Ming was not so easy to be disturbed. He was dodging the hidden weapon and waving the short sword in his hand to block the attack from the human-shaped puppet. Later, he took advantage of the gap between the attack of the spider puppet and rushed in front of Chenny. Yes, Qing Ming only attacked the puppet before, but didn't he discover Chenny's original body? Now that the other party has appeared in front of him, he naturally will not compete with the puppet rigidly, but like others, he chooses to attack the puppet master himself. Unfortunately, although Chenny lacks combat experience, the training of the puppet master is extremely orthodox. Knowing that he is the biggest weakness, he has always been prepared for it. Therefore, Qing Ming's assault failed, and the sword he swung was blocked by the spider puppet. Not only that, 2 tubes also stretched out from the abdomen of the spider puppet, and 2 yellow-green poisonous mist sprayed out towards Qing Ming. Fortunately, Qing Ming had the Sharingan, and the moment the tube appeared, the person retreated alertly. Before the poisonous fog spread, Qing Ming threw out 3 kunai according to his memory just now, facing Chenny's standing position. Kuwu passed through the poisonous fog and attacked Chenny, but was once again blocked by the spider puppet. However, before Qian Yi could breathe a sigh of relief, a sizzling sound suddenly came. He looked closely and saw 3 detonating talismans burning violently behind the 3 bounced kunai. Not good. Chenny was shocked, and while flying backwards, he controlled the spider puppet to block it. Boom, 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 boom. A dazzling fire suddenly appeared, and a deafening explosion sounded, and 3 red fireballs rose up, instantly swallowing the spider puppet. However, beyond Qing Ming's expectations, the spider puppet was affected by 3 detonation talismans, and there was still no major problem. It's true that there is something tricky. With a mutter, Qing Ming jumped forward again and rushed towards Chenny. Seeing this, Qian Yi immediately controlled the 2 puppets to stop him. Qing Ming followed the method and began to dismember the 2 puppets again. In just a moment, the seriously incomplete human-shaped puppet was dismantled into parts by him and could not move at all. In addition, there was a spider puppet, whose leg was removed by Qing Ming again. During this period, Chenny naturally resisted, but it was useless. Before, when he was hiding in the dark, he could not stop Qing Ming from dismantling the puppet. Now, the body has been exposed. With such a big weakness, it is naturally even more impossible to stop it. The spider puppet is already incomplete in order to protect itself. Finally, Qian Yi was furious and used his last resort. I saw that the spider puppet that was circling with Qing Ming suddenly stagnated. Then, accompanied by a crack sound, it suddenly dissipated into parts all over the ground. Etc. It is not parts, but spider puppets of different sizes. Chenny's 10 fingers moved slightly, and the chakra line was divided into 2, 2 was divided into 4, and 4 was divided into 8. All the puppets were connected in an instant. If Qing Ming had been too small to observe before, he could still vaguely see even if he did not open the Sharingan. But, so many chakra lines, can the other party be controlled by a mere Zongnan? Single quote. You know, Xiao has been known as a top-notch puppet master when controlling a puppet with 1 finger. This is. Qing Ming roughly counted the number of spider puppets, at least hundreds. Managing puppet battles of this scale can only be achieved when the scorpion transforms itself into a human puppet. Qing Ming didn't believe that the other party, the nameless man, could do it. What must be a trick in this? Single quote. Qing Ming thought secretly in his heart, and unconsciously took a step back. However, when he retreated, he was like stabbing a hornet's nest. The spider puppets on the ground jumped up one after another and rushed towards him one by one. A cold light flashed, and Qing Ming swung out the short sword in his hand, instantly splitting the spider puppet in front. However, at this moment, the alarm was heard in his heart, the Sharingan was spinning rapidly, and everything in front of him was slowly released. Finally, he saw a familiar talisman paper inside the spider puppet that was divided into 2 halves, which was the detonating talisman, and the talisman paper was still burning. Grass. Qing Ming cursed and suddenly retreated. If it is just a detonation talisman, then there is nothing, but I'm afraid that there are detonation talismans hidden in those spider puppets. Once surrounded by them, hundreds of detonating talismans exploded together. Before Susanoo, Qing Ming didn't know how to defend himself. So, just in case, it's better to leave first. As it turned out, his decision was right. As soon as he left, two spider puppets jumped to the position he had stood before. Then, together with the spider he split, three explosions sounded almost at the same time, and the surging flames instantly covered an area of several meters in a radius. There is another update tonight. Chapter 98 Captive. Sure. Looking at the three fireballs rising at the same time behind, Qing Ming felt a stern heart and couldn't help but speak, they are really all detonating talismans. After saying that, he saw more spider puppets jumping towards him. Qing Ming dared not resist and quickly retreated. Boom 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 boom. Several more explosions rang out one after another. In the smoke, Qing Ming ran out wildly, followed by dozens of spider puppets of different sizes. At this time, Qing Ming wished he could immediately learn when to escape breakthrough, and give the other party this to blow away the spider puppets. Unfortunately, he has not practiced this ninjutsu since he got this ninjutsu. It's not that he doesn't want to practice, but now he has not fully mastered the morphological changes and nature changes of fire attribute chakra. He will only achieve half the result with twice the effort when developing the wind attribute. Even with the assistance of proficiency panel, forcibly learning this ninjutsu, the process of liver proficiency will consume more unnecessary chakra. This is completely unworthy of the gain, so I haven't practiced it. However, after this time, Qing Ming planned to allocate more chakra to the Fire Escape Phoenix Immortal Fire technique, to master the morphological changes and properties of the fire attribute chakra as soon as possible. After that, you can start developing wind attribute chakra. At that time, if you encounter this current situation, you will not be too passive. Thinking of this in my heart, Qing Ming jumped and avoided the sneak attacks of several spider puppets again. Boom 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 boom. The familiar explosion sounded again, but it still did not cause any harm to Qing Ming. Not only that, as time goes by, Qing Ming gradually discovered the shortcomings of these spider puppets. Among them, the most fatal thing is that you cannot separate too much. Qing Ming probably is the disadvantage of the other party taking advantage of the tricks to control so many puppets. That's right, it's just a trick. Qing Ming had already seen that the other party did not directly control so many puppets, but completed the control of all puppets through indirect control, points and surfaces. This leads to the vast majority of puppets being able to follow the side of those puppets that are the center. In this way, it is impossible to form an effective surround for Qing Ming. Qing Ming was not very afraid of the pursuit and self-destruction alone. Anyway, the number of these puppets is limited, and once they are exhausted, it will be his chance to fight back. In order to speed up this progress, Qing Ming would occasionally use the Fire Escape Phoenix Immortal Fire technique, while dodging. When facing giant puppets, this technique is slightly less powerful, but it is more than enough to deal with these small spiders with simple manufacturing technology. Fire Escape Phoenix Immortal Fire Art. Hundreds of fist-sized fire were controlled by Qing Ming and smashed towards the group of spider puppets. Unfortunately, the spider puppet was too small and had both flexibility. In the end, most of the fire were lost, and only about 10 hit the target. But, that's enough. Accompanied by a series of explosions, all the puppets were scrapped. In this way, Qing Ming kept reducing the number of spider puppets. A few minutes later, there was no more spider puppet in the field. Qianyi walked out from behind the tree with a gloomy face, looked at Qing Ming, and opened his mouth as if he wanted to say something. But at this moment, Qing Ming's expression suddenly changed, he flashed and instantly came to him. The short sword in his hand slashed out and pointed directly at the other party's neck. Chenny did not expect Qing Ming to take action without saying a word, and quickly raised the kunai in his hand and blocked it. Ding! Kyubu and the dagger made a crisp sound. Qing Ming continued to exert force, which made Chenny take the initiative to give in. Qing Ming was unreasonable and used the Koi Flow Sword technique and Uchiha Flow Sword technique, one after another. In combination with the Sharingan that was fully activated, a deep bone-visible scar was left on the other party's body in just a dozen breaths. As the wound appeared, Qianyi's body suddenly collapsed and turned into a cloud of chakra smoke, dissipating. Obviously, this is just a shadow clone. Seeing this scene, Qing Ming's face looked a little ugly, but he did not show any surprises. Nothing else, the moment the other party showed up, Qing Ming keenly observed that there were some problems with the amount of chakra in the other party's body. Although the Sharingan cannot directly see the chakra meridians and acupoints in the ninja like rolling his eyes, the amount of chakra can still be roughly seen clearly. Therefore, Qing Ming saw that the other party had much less chakra than expected. You should know that because of the existence of the chakra absorption technique, Qing Ming is very concerned about the amount of chakra in the enemy. Obviously, when I saw the other party for the last time, there were still a lot of chakra. As a result, when he dealt with the last few spider puppets, the other party's chakra suddenly disappeared by almost half. In this case, the other party either used some powerful ninjutsu or even divided chakra shadow clone technique. In the former, Qing Ming neither saw any major movement nor felt fatal danger, so he directly ruled out. Then the latter is left. Because of this, he took action without saying a word, in order to confirm his guess as soon as possible. If the guess is wrong, then take the other party. If the guess is correct, then you have to hurry up and search for the other party's true body. As it turns out, his guess is correct. So, the next step is to find the other person's true body. Qing Ming spent so much effort, but he didn't want the other party to run away. With a thought, Qing Ming began to recall the entire process of the battle just now, analyzing when and where the other party used his shadow clone to escape. After a few breaths, Qing Ming came to a big tree. It was not the tree that Qian Yang's clone just hid, but another one not far away. Qing Ming remembers that the last time the other party left his vision, it was here. After a careful examination, some traces were found. After determining the direction of the other party leaving, Qing Ming immediately chased after him without any hesitation. In a flash, more than half an hour passed. Finally, Qing Ming blocked Chenny in a forest. You are really indispersed. Chenny looked at Qing Ming, who appeared in front of him again, and his face looked very ugly. Although the moment he merged the memory of the photo clone, he understood that Qing Ming had discovered his little tricks and knew that the other party would definitely pursue him. But he really didn't expect that Qing Ming would come so quickly, and he was obviously very careful. It can only be said that he still underestimated the Sharingan's insight. Once the direction is determined, with Qing Ming's experience and the help of Sharingan, the other party will not be able to escape his tracking. Qing Ming didn't have the heart to talk nonsense with the other party. This battle had been delayed for a long enough time. He didn't want to waste his time. So, a momentum technique came directly to the other side. The battle begins instantly. As a puppet master, Chenny's main methods are focused on controlling the puppets. Without the puppet, it is equivalent to a tiger without its minions. Although such a tiger can be scary, it cannot hurt people. Therefore, Qing Ming took down the opponent without much effort. Looking at Qian Yi, who fainted on the ground, Qing meditated for a while and used the chakra absorption technique to absorb all the chakra in the other party's body. Then, after carefully dealing with the traces around him, he carried the other party to the underground space. Chapter 99 Chakra Battery. In a blink of an eye, another 3 days have passed. The storm caused by Chenny, the Sha hidden puppet master, has subsided. The mission report ended with the other party's escape. It was submitted by Qing Ming and passed the review. In the future, unless you pay special attention to this person or look for someone in Sha hidden village, this person will disappear from the world. And this is too normal during wartime. No one would waste energy for such a nameless person. I'm afraid only the other party's family would look for it. That's right, from Chenny's mouth, Qing Ming had already confirmed his guess. The other party was indeed not a civilian ninja, but a fallen clan in the Sand Village. It is said that the patriarch of their clan was once the apprentice of the second-generation Fengying sword, and inherited the other party's technology of creating and manipulating puppets and mechanisms. Unfortunately, the two ninja wars caused heavy losses to their clan and gradually became declining. It was not until recent years that Chenny, a genius who is not a genius, appeared, and there were some signs of rising. But because of this, Chenny has never been free. No matter what he does, someone will follow him, and most of the time is limited to the clan to learn puppet technology. Chenny is also very successful. He can create puppets by himself at a young age. Giant spider puppets and human-shaped puppets are his proud works. It is precisely because of these two puppets that he was allowed to move freely. Perhaps it was because the previous one had been suppressed for too long, and when the other party was performing a task, he always had some chances to jump out and like to make some risky moves to prove himself. Just like this time, he could have let Karaki go, but when he saw that he was the only one, he took action without thinking, which led to Qing Ming and others. Afterwards, he even wanted to knock Qing Ming and others out of ambush. Unfortunately, if you walk too much at night, you will always encounter ghosts. With the configuration of the opponent's team, if it were other Konoha Chunini, he would really be successful. Unfortunately, the other party was unlucky and hit Qing Ming's hand. Qing Ming's strength, let alone Zhongnan, even Shangnan dared to use a few moves. It is obvious that Chenny does not have the strength of Shangnan. In this way, it is normal to end up failing and being captured. Captain, are you still separated here? While thinking, Yangachi Kamiho suddenly heard from the side. Qing Ming glanced around and pointed, well, it's here. As he said that, he looked at Yoichi Katsujo and another Zhongnan who had been transferred from other teams to support him. He ordered, next, you will follow the plan and check the marks and traps along the way, and send a signal immediately if there is any problem. Yes, Captain. After answering, the two left. Qing Ming also pretended to check the area he was responsible for. But soon, he went around a remote corner and stopped under a short tree. After looking around, Qing Ming pushed open the weeds on the ground, revealing a dark hole. Then, he jumped into it, and fell 3 or 4 meters before he stepped into it. Qing Ming did not stay, found the direction in the dark, continued to move forward, and finally came to an empty underground cave space. This is where Qing Ming accidentally discovered while patrolling. The cave was formed naturally, but the passage was opened up by man. Inside the cave, he also found some daily necessities, something from about 10 years ago. It is precisely because of this that he concluded that someone specially opened up this place to hide in the last Ninja World War. I don't know if the other party is dead now, Qing Ming said in his heart. However, even if the other party is not dead, as long as you can't use this place, you will most likely not come here, and even the other party may forget it. Since this is the case, it won't be a problem for him to use it temporarily. When he arrived at the deepest part of the cave, looking at Qianyi who was tied to the pillar and lost his hands, Qing Ming said, "Okay, don't pretend to be asleep. You should know the ability of my eyes." As soon as he finished speaking, Chenny opened his eyes full of resentment. "Stop dreaming, I won't say it." Chenny gritted his teeth and said this. Qing Ming replied calmly, "I know." After saying that, he raised his hands, made a seal directly, and performed the chakra absorption technique. The palm was wrapped in chakra, and Qing Ming pressed it on Qianyi's head. Immediately, the other party's chakra penetrated into his body like a flood discharge. At the beginning, Chenny struggled quite hard, but when chakra was gradually pulled away, his whole body became wilted. I have to say that Chenny can be regarded as the hope of the family, and his qualifications are indeed extraordinary. The ordinary Chunin chakra is only around 2 or 3,000 points, while he has 5,000 points, which is still not a fixed situation. If he is given a few more years and his body develops again, his family might have another new member of the Shengren family. Unfortunately, Qing Ming is cheaper now. The chakra of the other party was drained, and Qing Ming obtained 3,000 points with a conversion rate of 60%. Like the previous 2 days, these 3,000 chakras were divided into 2 parts by Qing Ming. Among them, 2,000 points are used to practice the Spirit of Heart, and 1,000 points are used to improve the level of Fire Escape Phoenix Immortal Fire Art. In this way, whether it is the Coincidence Art, or the Fire Escape Phoenix Immortal Fire Art, you can gain an additional 12 points of proficiency. The former can promote the evolution of Sharingan to increase the degree of evolution by 4 points. Including the 10 points obtained by its own chakra supply, that is 14 points. The overall speed is 40% faster than before. There is no doubt that this is a huge improvement. As for the latter, the speed of accumulation of proficiency of Fire Escape Phoenix Immortal Fire Technique is more than doubled, which will make the improvement even greater. In this way, even if Chenny does not explain the knowledge about the puppet secret technique, Qing Ming will not lose. With such a chakra battery, it can save him a lot of time. However, there is still too little battery. Qing Ming has already planned to catch more prisoners when he learns the shadow clone technique. Yes, Qing Ming is ready to learn the shadow clan art. Only by learning this technique can he avoid the eyes and ears of other Konoha ninjas and stay here for a long time. Only when he is here can he dare to imprison more ninjas. Otherwise, if someone accidentally runs away, it will be a big trouble. Just like now, in order to prevent Chenny from escaping during his absence, he cruelly cut off the other party's hands, destroying his ability to build seals and condense chakra threads. At this point, Qing Ming had to come over and take a look from time to time, for fear that the other party would use other methods to escape. There are many people in detention in the future, so he can't cut off all their hands. Even so, it is not safe. There are many secret techniques in the ninja world. Who knows if the other party will be the same as Jiraiya, and give him a pair of feet seal. Therefore, Qing Ming will be relieved only by staring at him personally. After checking the rope again and confirming that there was no problem, Qing Ming quickly left the cave. He has not forgotten his mission. If something happens to the top and he is not here, he will be a little confused. Opening parenthesis. Chapter 100 Fusion. In a blink of an eye, time came to evening. After Qing Ming and others completed the last round of patrols, they returned to their base. Then, after completing the handover with the team that came to rotate, he followed the main force straight east and rushed to the base camp. At this point, the week-long patrol mission has ended successfully. Including the previous 2 tasks, he has completed 3 tasks since returning to the front line more than 20 days ago. Next, he will have about a week to rest. Well, it is impossible to rest, and he still has a lot to do. The second day back to the base camp. Early in the morning, Qing Ming rushed to the training ground on the northwest side of the base camp. After randomly finding a corner where no one is around, Qing Ming began to practice the Uchiha flow sword technique. In the past 7 days, during the patrol mission, he has already brought the Koi flow sword technique to the perfect state of LV50/0. Next, just try to integrate the Uchiha flow sword technique to the point of perfection. And this won't take long to do it. Because his Uchiha flying skill has also reached the level of LV4 1985-2000 and is only one step away from perfection. Qing Ming practiced the Uchiha flow sword technique over and over again, and various insights continued to +1 inch as he proficiency came to his mind. This is also the driving force that he can practice again and again without getting tired of. Time passes by minute by minute. Gradually, Qing Ming entered the state of forgetting both things and me, and there was nothing else in his mind except the Uchiha flow sword technique. In the blink of an eye, several hours passed. As noon approached, after Qing Ming used the Uchiha flow sword technique, again, a new feeling surged in his heart. In an instant, Qing Ming only felt that he had a deeper understanding of the Uchiha flying skill. It's perfect. Single quote. This thought suddenly flashed through Qing Ming's mind, but he was soon thrown behind him. There was nothing else, and all kinds of insights about the koi flow sword technique also appeared in his heart. The two sword techniques intertwined and merged with each other, and finally broke their respective limits and turned into a brand new sword technique. This sword technique not only has the strengths of the koi flow sword technique, but also includes the linkage and cooperation ability of the Uchiha flow sword technique, and the Sharingan, which seems to be tailor-made for Qing Ming. No, this is the sword technique that is tailor-made for him, created by himself, and is the most suitable for him. Suddenly, Qing Ming opened his eyes full of joy. Panel. With a thought, Qing Ming opened the proficiency panel. The next moment, a familiar light blue light curtain appeared. Name: Uchiha Aomi. Age: 11 years old. Physical constitution: 9 right pointing arrow 10. Spirit: 11. Chakra: 7,800 10,621 right pointing arrow 11201. Bloodline: Sharingan double Egiyama 354 5,000 right pointing arrow 652 5,000. Skill: Chakra refining, LV4 792 2000 right pointing arrow LV4 1008 2000. Fire escape the art of the great fireball, LV2 110 500. Fire escape Phoenix immortal fire art, LV4 75 2000 right pointing arrow LV4 381 2000. Fire escape dragon fire technique, LV2 100 500. Shadow clone technique, LV0 5 100. Chakra absorption, LV2 105 500 right pointing arrow LV2 250 500. Healing technique, LV2 10 500 right pointing arrow LV2 161 500. Magic the art of shackles, LV3 355 1000 right pointing arrow LV3 625 1000. Illusion Sharingan, LV3 121,000 right pointing arrow LV3 191,000. The art of reflecting the heart, LV5 1181 5000 right pointing arrow LV5 1832 5000. Sword technique, LV5 15,000. 3 body techniques, LV3 0/0. Instant body technique, LV4 0/0. Ninja tool throwing, LV5 0/0. It can be seen that the panel now has no Konoha flow sword technique and Uchiha flow sword technique, and replaced by a new skill called sword technique. Moreover, its level also breaks the limitations of the predecessor LV5 0/0 and becomes LV5 15,000. This means that he can continue to be proficient in liver again. In addition, the fusion of the two sword techniques also touched the foundation he accumulated after practicing hard for 2 months, increasing his physical constitution, attribute a little, from 9 to 10. Qing Ming felt it carefully for a moment and could clearly feel that the shackles of his body were broken again. In other words, his potential has been improved again. Qing Ming sat cross-legged, used the chakra refining technique to feel the changes in his body, and calculated the changes brought to him by this improvement of physical attributes. About an hour later, Qing Ming opened his eyes. Immediately afterwards, a smile appeared on his face. Nothing else, the surprise brought to him by this physical attribute improvement exceeded his expectations. The first is the growth of the chakra upper limit. According to Qing Ming's prediction, his chakra upper limit can increase by at least 3,000 points this time. You should know that the last time Sharingan evolved, physical constitution +1 and spirit +2, his chakra upper limit was only increased by more than 5,000 points. This time, just because the physical attributes have increased a little, the chakra upper limit will increase by 3,000 points, which is obviously a bit abnormal. But Qing Ming just thought for a while and understood the truth. It's very simple. The reason why I only added more than 5,000 points last time was because of the mismatch between physical constitution and spiritual. To be precise, it is the lower physical attributes that limit the growth of chakra. Now, the increase in physical properties is equivalent to lifting some restrictions, and the growth of chakra is naturally slightly more than expected. The reason why it was not obvious before was that both basic attributes were too low, and even if there was a gap, the gap would not be too big. But as the physical attributes and spiritual attributes continue to improve, the gap between each attribute is widening. In this way, even if the points are the same, the gap between the front and back will be very huge. From this, we can easily draw a conclusion that if chakra maintains the most efficient growth in the future, we must maintain the balance between the two basic attributes as much as possible. Keeping this in mind, Qing Ming began to think about the second surprise, namely the recovery speed of chakra. According to his estimate, after the physical constitution is improved a little, his daily chakra recovery should be increased by about 2,000 points. In other words, the amount of chakra he can use every day will change from 8,000 points to 10,000 points. Qing Ming plans to use the newly added 2,000 chakra in the practice of Shadow Clan art. It just so happened that he had no tasks this week and could always keep the chakra at a low level. In this way, when practicing the Shadow Clan art, you won't lose too much chakra. 2,000 points is enough for him to accumulate more than 10 or 20 points of the Shadow Clan art. In this way, it will be no problem to get his liver into the beginning in 1 week. He did it as soon as he thought of it. Qing Ming put away his short sword and first practiced the Fire Escape Phoenix Immortal Fire technique 10 times, consuming 850 chakra points, increasing his proficiency by 10 points. Then, the same method was done, and almost the same chakra was used to improve the proficiency of Magic Sharingan and Illusion Sharingan, respectively. At this time, the remaining chakra was more than 5,200 points. Qing Ming used half of them to perform the Shining Heart technique, while the rest began to practice the Shadow Clan art. In this way, you can gain a little proficiency by spending more than 100 chakra for each exercise. After several times, the chakra in his body dropped below 2,000 points, unable to meet the needs of practicing the Shadow Clan art. Qing Ming began to operate the chakra refining technique. Soon, the chakra in his body recovered to more than 2,000 points. At this time, Qing Ming began to practice the Shadow Clone technique again. In this way, his chakra always hovered around 2,000 points, and his proficiency in the Shadow Clan art has steadily improved. There is another update tonight. Thank you for watching. Continue exploring the fascinating world of Chinese novels with us. Hit that subscribe button on Chinese Novel Audiobook to stay updated with our latest stories, and never miss out on a great listen.